When Zhang Ying walked out of the office building, it was raining in the world. Spring is cold in March, and the temperature has just warmed up and dropped sharply, as if returning to winter all at once. The street lights lit up the dark night, and the spring rain fell on the ground with pink petals. She took the phone out of her pocket and took a look at the time, at 23:48 on March 14th. In 12 minutes, her birthday is about to pass. After a day's work, the plan hasn't been changed. Had it not been for the uncle security guard who locked the door to urge her, she might have to spend the night here. It's raining just in time. Zhang Ying sighed, opened his umbrella and stepped into the rain. How could a social animal be worthy of a birthday? It was nothing more than a reminder that she was 1 year older and passed a year in such a silly manner. She went out this afternoon, and when she came back, the parking space was occupied, and she turned around before finding a place to park. Zhang Ying dropped his head and shoulders, and walked over listlessly. It would really be a good thing for people if the water reversal. As soon as she was about to walk to the end of the street, when she raised her eyes, she was attracted by a small house with lights not far away. In the quiet and dim early morning, this shimmering hut resembles a treasure box accidentally dropped from the magical world, hidden abruptly between trees and tall buildings. Zhang Ying stopped and couldn't resist curiosity and approached there. I have heard from my colleagues a long time ago that a new coffee shop has been opened nearby, and the decoration is quite beautiful. It's all this point, and it's still on? Vaguely seeing the figure inside, Zhang Ying walked under the eaves, retracted the umbrella and gently pushed open the glass door. A bell was hung on the door, and the collision made a crisp sound, which disturbed the quiet rainy night and also disturbed the people behind the console. He was a young man with a white shirt over a loose sweater, a grey apron, gold-rimmed glasses on the bridge of his nose, and a mature and gentle dress. Seeing Zhang Ying, he was a little astonished. He nodded at her in return, showed a polite smile, and said, "Hello." Zhang Ying also nodded at him, and quickly glanced at the store environment. White is the main color, the tables and chairs are all wood, and there are a lot of green plants. On the left side of the door are the front desk and the back kitchen. There are 5 or 6 seats in the lobby. Simple Nordic style, but there are many warm places, warm yellow tones of lighting, light green or yellow grid tablecloths, a small pot of plants on each table, and printed pillows on the chairs. "It's not closing so late?" she asked. The man hummed, and continued to bow his head to pack the tableware. Yun Xian is the owner of this coffee shop. There is rain today, and the ticking sound will make it more difficult for him to fall asleep, who is already insomnia, so he simply stays in the store to prepare tomorrow's ingredients to kill some time and energy. But I didn't expect that there would be guests coming so late. Can I still order now? Zhang Ying put the umbrella beside the door frame and walked to the front desk. When he came closer, he found that the young man was quite handsome. He is very tall. Zhang Ying himself is 1.75 meters tall. He is at least 1.85 meters tall. Thin lips and high nose, inner eyes, white skin, gentle temperament. When the handsome coffee shop owner can meet such a handsome amateur man, Zhang Ying raised his hand and rubbed the tip of his nose, covering the corner of his mouth that he wanted to raise, and he was secretly happy. It stands to reason that the business has closed. Yungxian hesitated, but nodded, "Yes, but not all meals are available." Zhang Ying didn't look at the menu, and asked directly, "Are there any cakes?" There was just one piece left today, and Yun Xian wanted to take it home by himself. He left a sentence of "Wait a minute" and turned to enter the back kitchen. When I came out again, I had a plate of light yellow sponge cake in my hand. "That's it, cheese ice cream, okay." Zhang Ying was ready to make a move. "Okay, that's it." The cash register in the store was turned off, and Yun Xian asked, "22, is there any cash?" Zhang Ying hasn't used cash much since the popularization of mobile payment. She shook her head and realized that this is a good opportunity to reach the other party's WeChat. Fearing that he would say I will open the cash register in the next sentence, Zhang Ying speeded up his speech and suggested, I'll send it to you on WeChat? Shall I scan you? Okay. Yun Xian took out the phone from his pocket. As he unlocked the screen and opened the WeChat interface, Zhang Ying cheered inwardly. Until I saw the other party opened Facetoffice collection. Zhang Ying. The little juju in her heart was ruthlessly stifled by the convenient application technology. The smile on Zhang Ying's face stiffened, and he entered the value and paid 22 yuan. His name is displayed on the page as *Xian. Zhang Ying didn't recognize the word, so he asked, Han. Yun Xian was stunned for a moment. He realized what the other party was saying and replied, Xian, my name is Yun Xian. Zhang Ying chanted the name in a low voice Yun Xian, which was quite immortal. After paying the money, Yun Xian took out the packing box and wanted to pack it up for her. Zhang Ying stopped him, no need to pack, are you in a hurry to close the store? No hurry. Yungxian put it back in the box, took out a blue porcelain plate from the cupboard, and handed the cake to Zhang Ying, please use it slowly. Thanks. There was a bar next to the front desk, and Zhang Ying sat down nearby. The store's stereo plays soft and soothing songs. Zhang Ying scooped a spoonful of cake, the cheese was salty and sweet, and the taste was creamy. She held her chin and watched the handsome boss being busy at the console in a straightforward manner. Thinking of knowing the name of the other party, Zhang Ying said in courtesy, Boss, forgot to say, my name is Zhang Ying. Zhang with ginger, welcome Ying. Yungxian didn't know why she suddenly reported herself to her family. He thought she was bored and wanted to talk to someone. He nodded slightly and continued the topic, are you working nearby? Well, Zhishan Studio, a game maker. I don't know if you have heard of it. Hearing the name of Zhishan Studio, Yun Xian twitched his mouth. It's not just that he heard that the name Zhishan was proposed by him. Knowing that the other party is a friend's employee, Yungxian relaxes, I'm not afraid of getting fat after eating cakes so late. Although there are still a few minutes, but today is my birthday. Zhang Ying dug a scoop of ice cream sandwich into his mouth, his teeth trembled from the cold, and said vaguely, a sense of ritual. When Yan Yungxian looked up at her, feeling a little surprised, and whispered happy birthday. The girl looks quite young, she should have just graduated. The long black hair has a low ponytail, perhaps because it is a single eyelid, it adds a bit of coolness to her facial features, which is a good-looking look. He didn't know much about Li Zhishan's company, but he also knew that in the initial stage, it was when the boss was squeezed by the investor and the employees were squeezed by the boss. Game development is also a hair-consuming task. It seems that she has just got off work and she is exhausted. I can't make it to my birthday. I can only buy myself a small cake in the last few minutes of this rainy night. If he happened to stay in the shop today, she might not even have a piece of cake. Probably recalling the embarrassment when he was just working, Yun Xian looked a little bit more intolerable when he looked at Zhang Ying again. He sighed slightly when he thought that this could be regarded as a crime made by Li Zhishan. Yun Xian turned around and went back to the kitchen. When he came back in a few minutes, he held a small fragrance in his hand. He turned off the light, leaving only one on the top of the bar, and took a lighter to light the fragrance. With the sweet smell of apple, the flames burned in the dim. Yun Xian pushed the aromatherapy to Zhang Ying and said, I only found this. Zhang Ying didn't understand, so he moved his gaze from the candle to Yun Xian's face, staring at him blankly, hey. Yun Xian raised her eyebrows and motioned to her, wish, no candles, just take this will. Zhang Ying let out a cry, and the corners of his mouth rose as he lowered his eyes, and muttered, what am I doing? Yet. She thought for a while, and she didn't seem to have any big desires. Work smoothly, be healthy, and find a boyfriend. Su Legzu is always so few. The song played on the stereo came to an end, and the deep male voice sang in a low voice, good night dear world. Good night tall trees. good night and goodbye. I have made a lot of wishes for myself every year, and few of them can be realized. Zhang Ying folded his hands, closed his eyes, and said softly, then care about humans. I hope that people with insomnia will sleep tonight. Sleep well. Her voice is very special, not sweet among girls, her voice is low, her tone of voice is calm, like a light wine in a glass, it matches her cold and clean face. Zhang Ying opened his eyes, blew out the candle, raised his head and thanked Yun Xian, thank you, Boss Yun. When his eyes met, Yun Xian lost his senses for a moment. The rainy night was heavy and the lights in the room were dim, but her eyes were full of candlelight, bright like stars, as if hiding all the sparks in the world. It is rare that the eyes of a single eyelid can be so big, watery, very aura. Sleep tight. For the insomniac, this is too pale. Others can't understand the pain of being unable to sleep for a long time while dragging their tired body and mind at night. Tossing and turning, from anxiety to numbness, I clearly felt my own chaos, and only I knew what kind of torment he suffered. So good night is the word Yungxian is most afraid of hearing. Because his night is not peaceful, he needs to rely on drugs to force his brain to shut down, wait for his drowsiness to return to one place, and finally fall into a chaotic dream. They had never met before, and Zhang Ying couldn't possibly know the difficulty of the man in front of him. When meeting Ping Shui, she made a wish good night and good dreams. If it is a wish, then this sentence is too gentle. The rain stopped, and the long night returned to silence. The anxious mood was suddenly relieved. Yun Xian tilted his head and looked out the window. Perhaps because he was relaxed physically and mentally, he was born with a rare sense of sleepiness. Yungxian straightened his watch strap and said with a smile, I knew it was your birthday. I should invite you to this cake. Zhang Ying laughed, and the arc pulled out the dimples on both sides. Your store's service is really in place, and the boss will also send cakes on birthdays. Yun Xian said, well, come to my store for your birthday next year, and I will make it up for you. Zhang Yingqian smiled and responded well, and said boss atmosphere, but he only treated it as a polite statement in his heart. Yun Xian was serious, thinking it over. He found a post-it note and pen in the drawer at the front desk, and leaned down and roughly made a coupon. To say rough is really rough, the light blue paper only has the words birthday coupon and a piece of cake he drew. Yun Xian picked it up and looked at it, and added a small line below, Zhang Ying belongs to. In the lower right corner of the paper, he left his signature, and his handwriting is smart, which is regarded as a seal to guarantee his credit. He handed the post-it note to Zhang Ying, I'm serious, take it, and come to me to exchange it next year. Zhang greeted him, and saw the words on the paper were amused and laughed, what to exchange for? Will you accompany me on my birthday? Yungxian did not expect that she would understand this way, and a trace of embarrassment flashed across her face, I mean to give you a birthday cake. The atmosphere suddenly became a little subtle. Yun Xian took off his apron and turned back to the front desk. Zhang Ying coughed, and put the broken hair on his cheek behind his ears aside his eyes. Just as she carefully folded the paper and put it in her shoulder bag, the man turned back. He was still holding the unfolded apron in his hand, his fingers were slender, with distinct bones, and the skin on the back of his hand was even fairer on the dark cloth. Zhang Ying raised his head and looked at him, and asked, what's the matter? Yun Xian raised his hand and pushed down the glasses that had fallen, and Zhang Ying discovered that there was a small mole directly under his left eye, which was not obvious because it was blocked by the frame. I don't know where I heard that people with tearful moles love to cry and their hearts are soft. Maybe it is true, because she heard Yungxian say it's okay for your birthday, if no one is with you. The author has something to say, enjoy reading. A light-hearted short essay. Zhang Ying, 25 years old, is a newly promoted animal husbandry. She is most afraid of the boss and the Friday regular meeting. At this moment, she was holding the computer and notebook in her arms, holding the doorknob with one hand, and didn't push it away immediately. She took a deep breath first. When I was in high school, I was called to the office by my teacher, which was exciting and terrifying. She was the last to sit in the conference room. The photocopied documents have been distributed to each seat, and the boss Li Zhishan is sitting in the main seat. Zhang Ying pulled out the chair and sat down, and nodded to Fang Yu, the opposing director of operations, to say hello. She glanced at Li Zhishan with Yu Guang, wearing an ironed black suit, and playing with the pen in her hand expressionlessly. The metal pen cap was tapped on the tabletop, and the sound was not loud. The hearts of everyone present trembled with this beat. As usual, department reports, Li Zhishan asked about the current situation and progress one by one. He glanced around, and finally fell on Zhang Ying. The man's voice was mature and low, with the dignity of the leader. I have seen the revised plan. When it was his turn, Zhang Ying felt that the nerves all over his body were hung up, holding his breath and waiting for the second half of his sentence. Overall, it's okay. The simple words made Zhang Ying relieved. But she immediately got up and sat up straight again. I said that if you want to do well in analog mobile games, the player's sense of substitution is very important. We have an advantage over other games in terms of basic settings, but the response we received recently is not as good as I expected. Zhang Ying humbly accepted, yes, our planning team will focus on discussing and revising this issue. Li Zhishan nodded, and then asked, what are your thoughts on the next mainline update? What kind of teacher is most afraid of in class? That's it. After correcting your homework, you must also ask if you have previewed the next lesson. After a moment of confusion, Zhang Ying cleared her throat, calmly opened the notebook and stayed on a certain page while her brain was running fast. After a brief remark, she reported, the theme of the next chapter I think can be considered Spring Café. Office workers are busy day in and day out, and the coffee shop between the high-rise buildings is their rest stop, filled with the mellow aroma of coffee. Exquisite cakes are displayed in the cupboard, and the music soothes and relaxes the body and mind, where the tense nerves can be temporarily relaxed. Previously, the marketing department I have done a survey. In fact, the users who account for the largest proportion of our mobile games are young workers between the ages of 20 and 25. I believe that the theme of cafes will be more attractive than the previous chapters, and the sense of substitution will also be stronger. Li Zhishan did not make a statement, and first asked others, what do you think? I think it's good. Fang Yu took the lead to express his support. The first few chapters are all sentiment cards. The plot is good, but players also reported that the scene is not detailed enough. If it is a cafe, our art team will have a lot of room to play. The marketing department also thinks it is a good plan. It really caters to the preferences of the audience. This idea can be regarded as a preliminary approval. The planning team will give you a detailed plan next week, and I will be here first. Li Zhishan put down his overlapping legs and announced the end of the meeting. These words were comparable to a bell after class. Zhang Ying shrugged, feeling refreshed physically and mentally. As everyone packed their things and walked out of the meeting room one after another, Li Zhishan glanced at Zhang Ying. Zhang Ying, come to my office later. The teacher's tricked attention. The ease and joy of the end of the meeting was ruthlessly dispelled as soon as it happened. Zhang Ying reluctantly squeezed out a smile. Okay, I see. Li Zhishan's office is in the innermost part. When Zhang Ying knocked on the door and entered, he was leaning back in his chair and looking at his phone in a lazy posture. Zhang Ying Fang walked over lightly and shouted, "Boss!" Li Zhishan received the phone and pointed to the chair in front of him. Sit down. Working overtime until late the first 2 days? Li Zhishan asked straightforwardly without any preparation. This question was beyond Zhang Ying's expectation. Why does he care about this? The uncle security filed a complaint with him? Does he care about the company's electricity bill? Ah, it's not too late, I don't want to interrupt if there is not much left. I will definitely take it home next time. Li Zhishan looked at her helplessly. I didn't mean that. I don't advocate staying up late and working overtime. Don't be so late next time, go home early to rest. Zhang Ying blinked a few times quickly. Did she hear that right? When did the grim-faced devil execute humanitarianism? Li Zhishan asked again, is the DDL I gave too tight? Zhang Ying waved his hand quickly, no. He also expected that the other party would not be telling the truth, so he got up and took out a card from the pocket of the coat hanging on the hanger, go and buy some afternoon tea for everyone. It has been a hard time during this time. You decide what you eat and I will reimburse it. Zhang Ying's eyes were narrow and long. Now she opened her eyes because she felt flattered. She solemnly accepted the bank card with both hands and almost bowed to thank you, boss. Go ahead. As soon as Zhang Ying came out of the office and returned to her seat, Zhou Qingqing slid over in a chair, approached her and asked in a low voice, what did Li Tianwang say to you? Zhang Ying curled up the corners of his mouth and shook the card in front of Zhou Qingqing's eyes with his thumb and middle finger. He said he would invite everyone to have afternoon tea. I'm going. Zhou Qingqing couldn't help but exclaimed. Zhang Ying glared at him, and hurriedly covered her mouth and lowered her volume. Li Tianwang has become a benevolent father. Maybe it's a good mood for the meeting today. Speaking of which, when did you think about the plan for the cafe today? I was panicked when he asked. When? Zhang Ying picked up the notebook on the table, turned to that page and handed it to Zhou Qingqing, just now. Zhou Qingqing took the book. There is no plan on it. On the paper, Zhang Ying's recent expenses are listed on the paper. In the lower right corner, there is also a sketch of her sketches. But thanks to it, Zhang Ying's gaze stayed on the last line of words cheesecake, 22. Just when I saw this line of words and remembered what happened that day, I came up with the idea of a spring cafe. Zhang Ying was holding his notebook, and the figure of the man busy at the front desk that night appeared in front of him. I haven't seen him for several days, and the other person's appearance is blurred in his memory. She only remembered a small mole under his left eye. Qing, I'm going to buy afternoon tea. Zhang Yingtang got up, touched the phone and card from the table, and quickly walked out of the studio. It is fine today and the breeze is warm. Several seedlings ordered by Yun Xian arrived, and he planted them on the open space outside the store by himself. A few days ago it happened to be the Arbor Day, which is also considered a contribution to a green earth. The shirt was stained with mud, and his white hands were also dirty. I didn't feel that I was a cleansing addict just now. Yun Xian raised his hand and walked back to the shop, turned on the faucet with his elbow, and washed the inside and outside carefully with the hand sanitizer twice. After washing his hands, he took off his shirt jacket and put it away, wearing a t-shirt inside. Yungxian was born in September and is a Virgo. Although he is not hateful, he has many minor problems. It's okay to say that it's clean, and it's a good habit to say that it is clean. It's just a bit of obsessive-compulsive disorder. I can't stand the white things being soiled, and even a small stain won't work. Looking at it dazzlingly, I feel uncomfortable and uncomfortable. He also likes white the most. Most of the shirts and t-shirts are white, and the main color in the shop is also white. How about a lot of Virgo things? Today is a working day. There are not many customers in the store. 3 tables came in one afternoon. Many cups of coffee were sold at noon. Chunkin attacked humans as the weather warmed up, and Zhao Xinro yawned while wiping the cup, one after another. It was said that yawning would be contagious, and Su Cheng sat on a small bench to play games and followed suit. 2 people one after another, like a duet. Yun Xian couldn't stand it, and while drying his hands with a paper towel, he said to the 2 of them, Xiao Zhao, Su Cheng, there are not many guests today. If you are busy tomorrow, I will give you a half-day vacation. Thank you, boss. Brother, you are so nice. The sleepiness of the 2 disappeared suddenly, and happily took off their aprons and took their backpacks to get off work. Yun Xian lowered his head and smiled helplessly. He moved quickly after get off work, for fear that his boss would change his mind again. The phone made a beep, and Yun Xian took out of his pocket to unlock the screen. It was a WeChat from my friend Li Zhishan. Sincere, just after the meeting, I called the little girl to the office to comfort me, and took out the card to invite the employees to have afternoon tea. Sincere, I have been moved by my kind self. See the mountain, it's rare for a rooster to pluck its hair. Sincere, it's not all you yet. Sincere, it scared me. Sincere, let me feel guilty all day. Yun Xian looked at the text on the screen and gave a short smile. When signing for the saplings this morning, he thought of Zhang Ying, the girl who celebrated her birthday on Arbor Day. His mother loves to forward and push articles to him on weekdays, the latest social news of the season's health and food supplements, all kinds. Yun Xian turned a few pages of chat records and picked a few to send to Li Zhishan. Surprised. A company employee died suddenly after being on duty for 24 hours. 50 harms of staying up late. Do you still dare to stay up after reading it? The employee died of overwork, the company compensated 500,000. After receiving the push, Li Zhishan sent him a row of question marks and made a phone call to confirm whether he himself had been hacked. Yongxian recounted in a few words about meeting his staff in the café that night, omitting many details, focusing on the bleak atmosphere of the rainy night and the girl's pitiful, exhausted and sad look after overtime. Li Zhishan felt guilty. Sincere, when I gave the card today, I thought I was very domineering and handsome. Sincere, I was refreshed the moment I gave the card, and my heart hurts again after giving it. See the mountain, as for you? Sincere, I'm saving my wife, I'm struggling, you know what a fart. Yun Xian was too lazy to talk nonsense with him, and directly sent a red envelope. The other party took it happily, and returned him an emoticon pack with a puppy head tilted. The last table of guests in the store also left. Yongxian said walk slowly, put his mobile phone and got up to clean the tableware on the table. As soon as he folded the dishes and picked it up, he heard a bell ringing behind him. Welcome! Under the shade of the trees, the pools that had accumulated after the rain a few days ago were not yet dry, the warm sun fell on the earth, the white clouds were thin, the gentle breeze blew the branches and leaves, and the world was golden and brilliant. The girl walked into the door with Guang on his back. Yun Xian could only see her slim figure. After a few steps forward, the light switched, and the face was brightened. It's Zhang Ying. Wearing a light purple sweater, light blue jeans outline a pair of straight and well-proportioned legs. Su is the sun is flourishing, reflecting her softly and warmly. Boss Yun. Zhang Ying called him, smiling like a spring daisy. She stared at him, wearing different clothes in different weather and time, but her eyebrows were still the same as handsome, which made people unable to move their eyes. Hello. Yongxian steadily returned to the front desk holding the plate. The porcelain plate was put into the sink, making a sound of friction and collision. He washed his hands, took out a paper towel to dry the water stains, handed a menu to Zhang Ying, and asked, "What do you want to eat today?" Zhang Ying glanced roughly, 10 cakes, 5 cups of lattes and 5 cups of American style. Yongxian guessed why she had come, and asked knowingly, "Buy afternoon tea for my colleagues." Zhang Ying nodded, took out the card and shook, "The boss treats you." With a refreshing flick, Li Zhishan received a deduction reminder on his mobile phone. But I don't know whose pocket the money went into. It will take some time for Shifen to make, and Yongxian regrets letting Zhao Xian and Su Cheng leave early today. But at least there is something to be busy to make him less boring. Zhang Ying was not in a hurry, sitting on the high stool by the bar and propped his chin to watch him operate skillfully. In a trance, it seemed that the rainy night was back again. Have you always been a barista? Yongxian stirred the American style and said back to her, "No, I am interested in learning a little over the past 2 years." Zhang Ying said, "You look professional." Yunxian laughed but said nothing. After the 10 copies were made, Yunxian took a cardboard box and packed it for her, picked it up and carried it by herself, and found that the weight was not light. Can you hold it? How about calling your colleague to help? It's okay, it's okay. Zhang Ying picked up the box carefully. It was a bit difficult, but it was no problem to get the company. Boss, goodbye. Zhang Ying was about to turn around. Hey, wait! Yungxian stopped her. Zhang Ying put the side of the box against the edge of the table and asked, "What's wrong?" Yunxian handed a post-it note with a series of numbers on it. "This is my number. If I buy afternoon tea for the company in the future, make a call and I will ask the clerk to deliver it to you." Zhang greeted the paper and held it in his hand. "Okay." Before leaving, Zhang Ying hesitated for a few seconds, but still mustered the courage to ask him, "Is it convenient to add you to WeChat?" Before the other party could answer, she hurriedly added, "It's easier to contact you like this." Yunxian nodded, "Yes." With the answer, Zhang Ying held 10 heavy cups of coffee and 10 cakes in his arms, but his mood was as light as stepping on a cloud. Yunxian walked out of the front desk to her to the door, and helped her open the glass door. "Be careful, goodbye." Yungxian watched the girl leave with the cardboard box in her arms, and her back quickly disappeared around the corner. When he was idle again, he felt a little bored looking at the empty shop. The days are getting longer and longer, what can we do to kill time? The author has something to say, the WeChat that should be obtained will be obtained sooner or later. Zhang Ying held the square post-it note in his hand and spread it out when he was at the company. The paper had been wet with sweat from his palm and was crumpled. Fortunately, the numbers above have not been blurred. She handed the carton to Zhou Qingqing and asked her to distribute afternoon tea to everyone. "When I heard that I had something to eat, I stopped no matter what I was doing, and walked around like a square feeding pigeons." After Zhang Ying retreated to the crowd, he returned to his seat. She clicked on the search function of WeChat and typed numbers one by one, slowly and seriously. Soon he jumped out of the man's business card. The WeChat nickname is Jian Chan, and the avatar is the cloud and moon at night. The area says Beijing, no wonder he doesn't have a local accent. There are not a few posts in the circle of friends, and some are just insignificant daily routines. Facing the few messages, Zhang Ying looked at it again and again for a long time. Until Zhou Qingqing came over with the cake and asked, "Did you buy it by the cloud? Cloud edge?" Zhang Ying peeled off the lid of the coffee cup and lifted it to take a sip. Warm latte, slightly bitter, the aftertaste in the mouth is a light milky fragrance. "It's the new coffee shop next to you, I told you." "Ah." Zhang Ying nodded, "Originally called Yunbian." She has been there twice, without paying attention to the name of the shop. Zhou Qingqing leaned on the edge of the table and ate cakes, frankly fished, and chatted with Zhang Ying. "How about it, have you seen their boss?" "Boss? What's the matter?" Zhang Ying pressed add to the address book, flipped the phone on the table, and opened the cake in the box. Zhou Qingqing sighed, "A rare high-quality sportsman, haven't you noticed?" Before Zhang Ying could say anything, Zhou Qingqing said to herself, "Recently, this topic of women is all about him. You can find out whether you are in the store today, what clothes you wear, and which group you choose to open." Zhang Ying paused when he was eating the cake. "Does everyone know him?" "Yet. People are very gentle, they should be single. The most important thing is," Zhou Qingqing approached Zhang Ying and whispered, "young coffee shop owner, financially free, free time, looks good, and is a perfect boyfriend. Human set." Zhang Ying used a spoon to poke the mango pulp on the cake, a little absent-minded. Zhou Qingqing is still chattering, "You know the beautiful photographer in the studio downstairs? It's very literary and temperamental. I heard that I went to the cloud every day to brush my presents. Hey, I don't think about it when I wait for the grassy people. Appreciation and appreciation are enough to satisfy your eyes." Waiting for a piece of fruit to be completely unrecognizable by Zhang Ying, she snapped and put down her spoon. Speaking of character design, think about the character setting and plot outline of the hero in the new chapter for these 2 days, and give it to me by next Monday. Zhou Qingqing held the spoon in his mouth, and instantly wilted. Ah, but today is Friday. Zhang Ying patted Zhou Qingqing on the shoulder, then work overtime on weekends and I will stay with you. Zhou Qingqing smirked, okay, I get it. As his ears calmed down, Zhang Ying sighed, picked up the phone and clicked on WeChat. At the top of the message list, it says you have been added, now you can start chatting. Zhang Ying straightened his back and became nervous for a moment. Fists clenched and loosened, she typed hello, I am Zhang Ying on the keyboard and sent it over. Seeing the other party is typing, Zhang Ying sighed and stared at the screen. See the mountain, hello. Hi. And then? Then what does she want back? Zhang Ying was worried, and suddenly glanced at the cake at hand, and immediately regained his vitality. Sunset orange, what is the taste of today's cake? It's delicious. See the mountain, Melaleuca mango. Sunset orange, but I still prefer the piece I ate last time. See the mountain, cheese ice cream, right? Unfortunately, the little master did not do it today. Sunset orange, then wait for next time. See the mountain, The chat was over again, and Zhang Ying slumped on the back of his chair. Really should learn to have nothing to talk with Zhou Qingqing. With 2 hours left before get off work, Zhang Ying plans to make a list of work schedules for the next week before the weekend arrives. The cafe is the topic she temporarily thought about today. The progress is 0, and there is still a busy schedule to hand in a plan. Although Zhang Ying's grades were not top-notch since he was a child, he has an advantage. Once he starts something, he will devote himself to it. Colleagues clocked in and got off work one after another, and she was the only one left in the grid. Zhang Ying hit the last enter key to save the document and pack things. Picking up the phone, he realized that Yungxian had sent her a new message an hour ago. See the mountain, next week, the young master will make a new product, red velvet and sea salt taro mud, you can come and try. In the evening, the setting sun was blood orange, sinking between the buildings and the trees, and a breeze blowing in the sky. Zhang Ying's mood was relaxed and happy because of the sunset and the approaching weekend. It is also an invitation that is barely considered. Sunset orange, good. Like makes people stingy. Zhang Ying's gaze stayed on these words for a long time, biting the straw and not knowing what he was thinking. A cup of red grapefruit soda was about to bottom out. The computer beeps, it is a new email from Zhou Qingqing. Zhang Ying put down the phone, moved the mouse and clicked on the attachments. A few pages of documents were preliminary sketches and characters. Zhishan Studio was established 2 years ago, and its game Small World has been officially launched at the end of last year. It is a gourmet-themed mobile game for young people, combining traditional business simulation games and role-playing. The player unfolds the story as the protagonist Su Xiao, retrieves lost memories while savoring food, meets new friends, experiences various interesting events, and gradually solves many years of mystery. When touchscreen phones were first used, standalone games were the first to become popular. With the continuous development of mobile phone performance, large-scale real-time battle mobile games are now the most popular. This kind of game takes more than 10 minutes, and even half an hour for the elderly. It is not easy to take advantage of the fragmented time. The Small World is different, and the promotion of a level and plot often only takes 2 or 3 minutes. In addition, the plot and new modules are constantly being updated, and the player is like chasing a serialized comic with a stronger sense of experience. In addition, the Small World painting style is refreshing and healing, and the pictures of food are exquisitely made and lifelike, which is called the best game for food by players. Small World was originally a girl comic created by Zhang Ying during his college years. By chance, I met the current boss Li Zhishan and adapted it into a mobile game. The storytelling game progressed in the comics has been synchronized, and several new characters will appear in the next update. Zhang Ying took the tablet, clicked on the drawing software, and set up a drawing based on the person Zhou Qingqing had planned. Jian Ying, coffee shop owner, 32 years old. Dark brown hair and eyes, dress, light blue shirt and trousers, wearing a pair of silver-framed glasses. He has a gentle and stable personality, with estrangement in courtesy and politeness, and no one knows his origin. The requirement for the human design is that Jian Ying sits in a corner of the shop, holding a book, the coffee on the table is hot, and the cherry blossoms outside the window are in full bloom and spring is in full bloom. It is not difficult. Zhang Ying puts on headphones to play music, while conceiving in his mind, while moving the pen on the tablet. I don't know if this person accidentally fits with someone, or if he has been to Yunbian too many times recently. When he drew a rough sketch and hooked it, Zhang Ying suddenly found that he had been substituting Yungxian. Even when she closed the pen at the end, she magnified the eye and spotted a small mole under the eyelid. Because of his guilty conscience, the more Zhang Ying looked at the characters on the screen, the more he felt like Yungxian. His face blushed, as if his secret thoughts had been revealed. She bit her lower lip and wiped off the small black spots under her eyes. She was cruel and adjusted the facial features and expressions of the characters on the picture. But the facial features of the characters I just painted are more accurate, and if you want to change it, you have to move your whole body. She wiped this line and patched up the shadow, but she was stretched, and the more she looked, the more unpleasant she became. Zhang Ying has always been a perfectionist at work, so he must first modify his drawing until he is satisfied. If it doesn't work, he will start again. She created a new canvas, took a deep breath, and redrawn her pen to draw the lines. 2 hours later, Zhang Ying irritated his hair and threw the paintbrush and lay on the table weakly. The man on the screen has his legs crossed, his posture is calm and graceful, holding a book in his hand, and smiling with his eyes down, as if his mind has been immersed in the plot of the book, earnestly focused. He was sitting on the dark green fabric sofa, half of his body bathed in the sun. The coffee is steaming on the wooden table, and beside the white porcelain cup is a golden hollow moire bookmark. Behind the glass window, the spring sun is warm, and a tree blossoms like clouds. No matter how you paint, you can see Yungxian's shadow on Jian Ying's body. Could it be possible that there is still goo in the coffee? Why are people full of hearts and eyes? Zhang Ying maintained a prone posture, stretched out his hand to the drawer beside the table, opened the door in a familiar way, poked his fingers, and took out the cardboard box and lighter in his palm and took it out. This is her last pack of cigarettes. At the beginning of the year, she decided to quit, so she kept one pack and couldn't help smoking another one. Marlboro Double Explosion, classic and popular ladies' cigarette. Zhang Ying had smoked it for a while before, and it was flavorful, but it would retain the flavor. The ladies' smoke is milder, but it has many weird flavors and does not leave an excessive tobacco flavor. When you open the lid, you can smell the sweet aroma, pop the beads, one powder one orange, the strawberry flavor when you breathe, and the orange flavor when you breathe out. The soft lips contain moisturizing cigarette tails, the white teeth bit through the pink beads beside the mouth, and the sweet strawberry flavor flows into the lungs along the breath. It is fresh and sweet when exhaled. Zhang Ying was sitting on the small swing on the balcony. A few days ago, she was busy with work and forgot to take care of the flowers and plants. But the orange rose she raised in this spring season when everything is growing, hangs her head listlessly. She smoked a cigarette lightly and slowly, vomiting lazily, cross-legged looking out the window in a daze. On Saturday afternoon, I don't know whose children were chasing and playing downstairs. The laughter was tender and clear, not noisy, but it was a bit of excitement. On a sunny day in March, the wind blew through the vines on the windowsill of the neighbor's house. The golden sunlight poured into the room, and the orange petals were reflected brightly. The smoke burned out, but the sweetness of the orange remained between the teeth. Zhang Ying pinched out the cigarette butts in the ashtray shaped like an orange cat. This is the baby he found when visiting the neighboring city with his girlfriends during the spring festival. I also stopped by to visit Dejue temple that time. Climbing up the 100 steps of the temple killed her. Zhang Ying doesn't believe in gods and Buddhas, but since he has come, he always asks for something. She knelt on the futon, closed her eyes and bowed her head religiously, and made a vulgar wish. Bodhisattvas, Buddhas, and believers in women have been waiting for a long time. It is really a bit lonely. You can send me a letter to Yuelao and ask him to guarantee me a good marriage in the coming year. She doesn't know if Yunxian is her good marriage. It only took a cigarette for Zhang Ying to figure it out, and she fell in love with others. Because he looks good to her, because of the smell of apple in the rainy night, because of the 2 post-it notes he wrote. Because she discovered that when Zhou Qingqing talked about how popular he was that day, her unhappiness should be called jealous again. After all, liking someone makes a person stingy. The author has something to say, love comes too fast like a tornado. The planning of the Spring Café is steadily advancing. Zhang Ying handed in the preliminary plan. After the review, Li Zhixin did not give too many comments. He just stopped for a long time on the image of the new role, and finally did not say anything, let Zhang Ying perfect it. Submit it to the program department as soon as possible. Everything went well, but I encountered some twists and turns when looking for a voice actor for Jian Ying. Mature and gentle male voices are not difficult to find, but Zhang Ying tried a few CVs and felt not satisfied enough. Jihan quickly searched for all the voice actors in the circle suitable for this style. Zhang Ying still shook his head and asked her to look for it again. Sister, how can it be done? I think Teacher Heffen is quite suitable. Zhang Ying thought a little, and said, the voice is good, but it still lacks a little feeling. Jihan poked the desk with a pen. If Zhang Ying hadn't been nice to her, she would have felt that this was deliberately making things difficult. Jihan thought for a while, and said, do you have a favorite candidate? A big boss? Then we may not be able to invite you. Zhang Ying leaned back on the chair, changed his posture, and denied, no one has chosen. Jihan wanted to cry without tears, then you should no longer consider teacher He Feng. He Feng is a well-known voice actor in the circle. His timbre and voice are changeable, but he is most famous for his gentle son voice. He came to dub Jianying, which was the best choice. Jihan's words made Zhang Ying reflect on herself. She seems to have turned aside. She obviously should have chosen a voice actor for Jianying, but now she has become a mind to find a voice similar to Yun Xian. Sure enough, it is easy to make mistakes with personal emotions. Zhang Ying flexed his fingers and rubbed his brow bones, and Jihan said, listen to He Feng's audio again. As soon as Jihan heard that there was still a scene, he quickly found the clip and clicked to play it. He Feng recorded 3 lines from Jian Ying's first encounter with Su Xiao. Welcome. Perhaps, maybe we have seen it before. Your latte, be careful about it. I wish you a nice weekend. He Feng is worthy of being a professional CV. Without background music and pictures, these 3 sentences restore the most essential tone. They are as clear as a spring, warm and moist as jade, and the feelings of courtesy and restraint in the heart are just right. It's really good. Just decide on Teacher Heffen. Zhang Ying decided. Yeah. I'll talk to the teacher right away. Jihan swept away his previous frustration and jumped up from the chair. Zhang Ying realized what, and squinted her eyes to look at her, bringing private goods. Jihan smiled shyly, no, people just think the teacher is very suitable. I am very happy to see him being selected. Zhang Ying smiled and waved her hand, asking her to quickly contact the actors to prepare for the official recording. The meeting room was quiet. Zhang Ying got up and dragged the progress bar to play the audio again. He Feng is suitable for Jian Ying, but not like Yun Xian. After hearing so many voices, I couldn't find one that was similar. The voice of the voice actors has been professionally trained and polished, and the timbre and intonation are almost immaculate, and every line is well grasped at the speed and weight. Because of this, he speaks less naturally and casually than usual, and he always has to hold the microphone a little bit less in front of the microphone. Yoon Xian's voice is not so stunning, the words spoken are light and not rushing, but they will not be forgotten lightly. Compared to He Feng, he is more like the breeze blowing over the trees in spring and the gurgling stream in the autumn forest. Zhang Ying enjoyed the process of chatting with him. A few trivial sentences are ordinary and meaningless, but they light up a good mood for the day. Thinking about it, Zhang Ying picked up the paper cup on the table and took a sip of coffee. She frowned in disgust. This quick dissolving one really can't compare to a handmade one. She licked her lower lip and wanted to go to the cloud again. At 6, Zhang Ying clocked in and got off work. It was only April, and the weather was so hot that it didn't cool down in the evening. Pushing open the glass door of the Yunbian Café as usual, the phrase welcome rang along with the sound of the bell. Sister Zhang, you are here. Zhao Xinruo was mopping the floor when she saw her smiling and greeted sweetly. Yet, there are not many guests today. Zhang Ying sat in the old position of the bar and took off the bag that straddled him. Su Cheng came out of the kitchen with a plate of cakes, and when she saw Zhang Ying, she asked her what she would like to drink today. Zhang Ying fanned the wind with her hand and asked Su Cheng, "Is there any cooler? It's so hot to me." "Give you a glass of white peach sparkling water." Ro. This month, Zhang Ying became a regular customer of Yunbian Café. Yun Xian is not always in the store. When he meets him, Zhang Ying sits at the bar and admires the busy boss Yun, occasionally chatting. Order a cup of coffee and sit for a while, which is a short relaxing moment after get off work. There is no new progress with Yungxian, but he is familiar with the two clerk in the store. Su Cheng is the 22nd of this year and is the dessert chef in the shop. Keeping a neat inch, always wearing black clothes, he looks like a stubborn, bad boy, but the delicate cakes in the cupboard are all made by him. Yun Xianai called him the little master, and Zhang Ying joked that he was a fierce tiger sniffing the rose. Zhao Xinruo is a junior student of English major in Zikan University. She works part-time in a coffee shop and will come to the shop to help if he has no class. When there are not many customers in the store, you can always see her with earphones carrying English words in her mouth. Su Cheng has quick hands and feet, and in a short while, a glass of ice drink is finished. The white peach pulp is on the bottom of the cup, the sparkling water is bubbling with small bubbles, and it is decorated with a leaf of mint. "Thank you." Zhang greeted him and drank half a cup in one sip. The cold liquid was poured down, and the sultry and thirst were relieved, and my mood was much better. The glass door was pushed open again, and Zhang Ying tilted his head to look at the sound of the bells. The woman standing at the door has long hair slightly curly, delicate makeup, a black suspender skirt lined with skinny, and she can smell the light perfume scent when she walks towards her. Zhang Ying knows her, Wendy, a beautiful photographer in the studio downstairs. Wendy walked to the front desk, looked around, and asked naturally, "Boss Yun isn't there?" Zhao Xinruo smiled back, "Yes, what would you like to drink?" The disappointed expression of the beauty is beyond words, "Then pack me a glass of ice American." Zhang Ying sat aside and drank soda in silence. After Wendy left the store with the packed paper bag, he pretended to ask casually, "Boss Yun isn't there today?" Zhao Xinruo wiped the table and returned to her, "Well, Brother Xian went to the hospital today." Zhang Ying's heart tightened, "Is he sick?" Zhao Xinruo, "No, it seems to be his friend. Today the boss answered the phone and left." "Oh, that's it." Zhang Ying stirred the pulp in the cup with a straw, and sighed with relief. Just then the phone rang, and seeing the note named mentally handicapped boss, Zhang Ying quickly picked up and answered, "Hey, boss. Got off work or not?" "It's off work, what's the matter?" Li Zhishan's voice sounded hoarse and weak, and lost his usual anger, "I have to take a few days off." You and Fang Yu will decide if you have anything to do. You will find time to report to me every day after get off work. Okay, Zhang Ying hesitated, remembering that Li Zhishan hadn't come today, and he asked again, Boss, are you ill? There was a few seconds of silence on the other end of the phone, and there was an Zhang Ying was still thinking about what to say next, so Li Zhishan spoke first, stomach disease, minor problem. Ah, then you have to take a good rest. As soon as he felt sorry for him, Zhang Ying heard Li Zhishan say in a weak but cold voice, my mobile phone is connected to the company's monitoring, and I supervise you in real time. Go to work and don't be lazy. It is good. Li Zhishan is poisonous, serious, and demanding. It is even more terrifying to start a fire, but as long as it is not the death week before the update, he is still very good to the employees on weekdays. Considering that he is a single man with no one to take care of, this time is a good time to flatter and show courtesy. Zhang Ying said softly and asked softly, Boss, which hospital are you in? The other party didn't buy it, what are you doing? Come and see how your boss is dying and then feel refreshed in my heart. Zhang Ying laughed a few times, no, I just want to visit you on behalf of my colleagues in the company. There was a cold snort in the receiver, the 16th floor of the People's Hospital. When you come, don't bring flowers or fruits. Pack me a porridge with preserved eggs and lean meat. I will be reimbursed. Okay, I'll be there soon. Zhang Ying hung up the phone, picked up her bag, and waved goodbye to Su Cheng and Zhao Xinruo, I'm leaving now. In Ward A76 on the 16th floor of the People's Hospital, Li Zhishan was lying lazily on the bed in a striped medical gown. His hair was black and thick, and his face was paler. Stop eating. The lunch boxes on the table were still full, obviously not moving a few mouthfuls. I feel bitter in my mouth. You still give me some porridge, can't you just eat more? Li Zhishan lay on his side and played with his mobile phone, getting angry with the young master. Yun Xian looked at him with his arms folded, and felt like raising a rebellious son. If you feel uncomfortable now, don't drink the wine last night. After poking at the sad thing again, Li Zhishan pulled the quilt over his head and unilaterally cut off the call. Yun Xian packed up his lunchboxes while scolding him, at first Zhou Yi was going abroad, you used wine to relieve your sorrows. Now that people come back, you are still drinking. You actually echoed it from end to end. There was a muffled voice in the quilt, who said that? I'm in a bad mood and drink small wines. Yun Xian stretched out his arm and pulled off his quilt, little wine? Brother, you drank a caddy of white wine on an empty stomach. Is it a trivial thing for you to have a stomach piercing? Li Zhishan is a man of 7 feet, able to bend and stretch. Xian Xian, good Xian Xian, go back soon, Tata is still waiting for you to feed. Yun Xian shook his head helplessly and tucked the quilt for him, then I'm leaving, call me if I have something to do at night. Okay. Li Zhishan pursed his lips and blew a kiss to him. Yungxian's goosebumps were so numb that Yungxian scolded him twice. Tutu is the orange cat raised by Li Zhishan, which means that a pile of banknotes will get rich soon. He slept with a hangover until noon, and was awakened by a stomachache. Yun Xian sent him to the hospital to find out that it was a stomach piercing. After a day of tossing, the poor little master was not fed. Yun Xian sighed when he came out of the ward. How come every time Li Zhishan and Zhou Yi toss, he is the one who suffers in the end? He was thinking about how to reveal the news of Li Zhishan's hospitalization to Zhou Yi naturally and without a trace, when he heard someone calling him in front of him. Boss Yun. With surprise, the voice sounded abruptly in the quiet corridor. The hospital should not be making noise, perhaps because he realized that his volume was too high. Zhang Ying hurriedly covered his mouth and walked towards him quickly. Just about to ask him how he was in the hospital, I remembered that Zhao Xinruo was in the store. Today, he came to visit his friends. The words in my heart circled around and turned into a sentence, what a coincidence. Yun Xian nodded and asked, why are you here? Zhang Ying raised the bag in his hand. Look at my boss, he is sick. Hearing that, Yun Xian's gaze fell on the packaging bag in her hand, and the right eyebrow was raised lightly. Thinking of Li Zhishan's intimidation in the ward, Yun Xian twitched the corner of his mouth and said, I don't forget to squeeze employees. Zhang Ying didn't hear clearly, and asked him, what did you say? Yun Xian shook his head, it's nothing, go quickly, I'll leave first. Oh, good. Goodbye. See you. Farewell to Yungxian. Zhang Ying found the ward, gently opened the door, and saw Li Zhishan on the innermost bed. Boss. Li Zhishan saw her at this time as if he had met relatives. For the first time, he said in an extremely enthusiastic voice, you are here. The porridge is still hot, drink it soon. Zhang Ying set up the small table. In addition to the porridge, she also ordered a custard bag. As soon as she opened the lid, the fragrance came out. Li Zhishan, who had not eaten much for a day, could smell it. Feel satisfied. He just picked up a spoon and took a sip of porridge to his mouth. The phone screen turned on and a new WeChat message came. Li Zhishan glanced, shaking his hand, the spoon fell off and fell into the bowl. See the mountain, is the preserved egg and lean meat porridge delicious? Zhang Ying saw that Li Zhishan looked left and right with trepidation and looked up and down, and asked incomprehensibly, Boss, what's the matter? Li Zhishan came over slightly and asked her, who did you meet on the road just now? Zhang Ying was a little dazed, and shook his head, no one. That's really weird. Li Zhishan lifted the quilt and grabbed his mobile phone and typed. Sincere, where did you install surveillance? See the mountain, in your mind, I asked the doctor to implant a chip for you while you were in a coma. Sincere colon? I don't know if it is a psychological effect, Li Zhishan really feels a dull pain in his brain. Seeing him holding his head, Zhang Ying asked with concern, Boss, do you have a headache? Do you want me to call a doctor? No. Xiao Zhang, take the preserved egg and lean meat porridge, I suddenly lose my appetite. Oh, okay, then eat later when you are hungry, the phone screen lights up again. See the mountain, I happened to meet Zhang Ying, let her buy the porridge. See the mountain, eat less, just taste 2 bites to relieve your greed. Li Zhishan was speechless in his heart, and sent Yun Xian an emoticon pack of a villain shaking his fist. Sincere, you are so scared that I almost went to have a craniotomy. On the other side of the screen, Yun Xian chuckled lightly and cursed Lengzi in a low voice. The suspense science fiction drama ended. Li Zhishan waved his hand, like a king sitting in the court, pointing Zhang Shan, Xiao Zhang, bring the porridge, I want to eat it again. Zhang Ying, who had just collected the table, looked at Li Zhishan with a pursed lips, his expression was difficult to express. On the way back, Zhang Ying clicked on WeChat and blocked his boss and colleagues to send a circle of friends. The boss is sick and his brain is broken. I was deeply shocked, it turns out that he also has a brain. 10 minutes later, Yun Xian gave this circle of friends a thumbs up. 05FIFTH cup of coffee. Yungxian went back to the apartment, changed his shoes and turned on the lights, put the shopping bag in his hand at the entrance, and first shouted tap. The master slowly came out of the living room and rubbed his fat face against the leg of his trousers. Yun Xian knelt down and fished it in his arms, and smoothly said, Are you hungry? After changing the water and pouring the cat food, Yun Xian sorted the things in the shopping bag neatly and collapsed on the sofa with a sigh of relief. He ate his dinner full, but Yun Xian was still hungry. With an empty belly, he was too lazy to take care of himself. He took a pack of Li Zhishan's bear biscuits from the coffee table in the living room and twisted a piece into his mouth. Yungxian feels greasy for the oversweet chocolate taste, but the high-calorie stuff also feels fuller. After eating 2 more pieces, he patted the crumbs on his hands and took a sip of cold water. The sky is completely dark, the night is deep, and the city is lit up with thousands of lights. It's boring. If both of them are at home, Li's Hixin will take him to watch a football match and play games. Now that Dengzi is in the hospital, the house suddenly becomes deserted. Yun Xian turned on his phone and edited a circle of friends to commemorate Li's Hixin's youth revival. The picture below is Li's Hixin, who is wearing a hospital gown and staring at the camera with no expression, and Yungxian's like with his left hand in the same appearance. Taking into account Li's Hixin's 30-year-old face, Yungxian set up a group, only Li's Hixin and Zhou Yi can see, but in order to create an effect, he deliberately commented on a few items below. Drinking too much, stomach perforation. Sister, don't worry too much about your brother Li. Thank you for your concern, the patient is now emotionally stable. Yun Xian amused himself as he typed, to see how hard he paid for his brother's love. Soon he received a question mark attack from Li's Hixin. Sincere colon? Sincere colon? Sincere colon? Sincere, delete it for me quickly. Sincere, which school girl cares about me? Why can't I see the comments? Mission, no school girl, group can be seen, only Zhou Yi can see. Sincere, grass. You don't block her, is she only visible? 5 minutes later, Yungxian couldn't help laughing when he saw Zhou Yi's comment. Let the doctor treat his secondary disease. Li's Hixin also saw it, and immediately poked Yungxian privately in the small window. Sincere, what does she mean? See the mountain, say you are naive. Sincere colon? Am I naive? Why doesn't she treat the princess disease? Yun Xian rubbed his neck, unwilling to listen to the two men ridiculed and taunted. Mission, rest early. After exiting the chat box and returning to the circle of friends, he flipped down at will. He doesn't have many friends, most of them are classmates and former colleagues, who hurriedly swept through them, and didn't bother to give them a thumbs up. When the finger slides to the familiar avatar, it stops. Zhang Ying's avatar and WeChat nickname seem to match, and the orange sunset in the sky at dusk. Most of her circle of friends is written in words, as if she has sent her feelings anytime, anywhere. Tuko the boss, complain about the weather, look forward to the weekend, or share a handmade painting. Including the present, a bowl of duck blood fans with the smell of fireworks. Supper invited by the boss. He is the most handsome and best man in the world. When Yungxian saw Li's Hixin like it, he felt a little distressed for these two stunners. He was probably cheating on this flattery, but he didn't know how others ridiculed you just now. Zhang Ying is actually very different from her initial impression. From the outside, she was a cold girl, always without much emotional ups and downs, as light as a cloud and unpredictable. After further understanding, you will find her interesting and cute. Yun Xian likes to see her circle of friends, especially when she mentions Li's Hixin. Maybe it's because her dog legs and Tuko are so calm and real, just as fresh and bright as this person. The food on the picture is more attractive after color adjustment. Yun Xian touches her empty belly, and the hunger strikes again. Starving is really painful, Yungxian struggled with himself, but decided to obey his heart and follow what Marquez called an honest lifestyle. He opens Zhang Ying's chat box, edits the text and clicks to send. Mizan, can you ask which duck blood fan is from? The other party almost returned in seconds. Sunset Orange, wait, I will share the shop with you. Sunset Orange, if you like to eat, you must go to Nanjing to eat authentic ones when you have time. See the mountain, good. Sunset Orange, I didn't expect you to eat this kind of thing too. See the mountain? Sunset Orange, you look too immortal, like someone who only drinks dew. Sunset Orange, you have to skim the oil when you eat green vegetables. After Yungxian read the words on the screen, he was amused by the other party's words. It was the first time that he saw such a metaphor. See the mountain, it is indeed not often eaten. Sunset Orange, this is the most delicious in Zikan, don't worry. It's on the street next to the coffee shop, it's very hygienic and clean. Mayama, okay, thank you. Zhang Ying sent an emoticon package with a pink rabbit on her face. Yun Xian guessed that she meant I wish you a happy meal. At 10 o'clock that night, Li Zhishan, who only drank a few mouthfuls of porridge a day, received a picture from Yun Xian. On the screen is a bowl of duck blood vermicelli pouring in spicy oil. The soup is rich, the duck blood is fresh and tender, and it is decorated with coriander, which is full of color, fragrance, and flavor. See the mountain, let's go to Nanjing another day. Sincere, haha, I cast a spell, you will skyrocket by 20 caddies tomorrow, and your abdominal muscles will become fat. See the mountain, rebound on Friday, Zhang Ying plans to go to Yunbian to pack a cake for the weekend after get off work. As soon as I entered the store, I saw Yungxian who was about to go out. The other party wore a rare sportswear today, refreshing and healthy. Zhang Ying asked him, are you going to work out? Yun Xian tightened the lid of the water cup and said yes. Zhang Ying's eyes rolled a half circle, and he asked, Jim. Well, it's the one on the corner. That house. Zhang Ying smiled with joy, I have a card over there. Yun Xian looked at her, and slightly raised the corners of her mouth, go often. Zhang Ying nodded and lied without changing his face, I like sports. There is indeed a card. The prize she drew at the annual meeting last year is reasonably suspected that Li Zhishan did not want to go there and set up such a tasteless prize. They are all iPads and switches, and no matter how bad they are also healthcare pots and foot baths. She just got a fitness card for this fat house who doesn't like sports. Yun Xian cast her eyes down and looked at her silently. The weather was warm in April. Zhang Ying was wearing a t-shirt and a denim skirt today. She is neither fat nor thin, showing a fair and well-proportioned calf. Just by looking at the lines, you can tell that she doesn't exercise much. He had thoughts of trickery, he deliberately teased her, well, let's go together. Hey! Zhang Ying obviously didn't expect this development, and he laughed, I have something to do today, next time, next time. Yungxian suppressed the corner of his mouth that he wanted to up, then I'll go first, bye. Zhang Ying waved his hand, goodbye. Watching the other party go out, Zhang Ying put down his smiling face and walked to the bar, weakly placing an order, pack me a piece of cheesecake. Ding, the phone rang a reminder tone. Zhang Ying swipes the screen to unlock. It is an 11-second language message. Although I am the owner of a coffee shop, I still have to say that you should control your diet during fitness. Have you eaten a lot of sweets recently? His voice rang against his ears, and Zhang Ying blushed, and murmured in his heart, you are not to blame for eating too much. Coming out of the Yunbian Café, Zhang Ying drove back to his parents' house. After working, she rented another house. The reason she told her family was that she was close to the company and convenient. But in fact, considering that I often stay up late and work overtime to write plans, I am afraid that my parents will talk. As soon as she took out the key to open the door, she couldn't say I'm back in her throat. Mother Zhang was sitting on the sofa talking on the phone, her tone was serious, and Wu Nong's soft words were also sturdy. A meal until 8 o'clock is not enough? Do you want to come back? I told you not to drink too much before I went, and I won't care about you when I come back drunk again. Zhang Ying took a sigh of relief, carefully changing his shoes and entering the house. Mother Zhang hung up the phone angrily and vented her dissatisfaction with her daughter, tell me about your dad, as soon as he is old. The last time I went to the hospital, he said he had high blood pressure and fatty liver, and he still drank it. Okay, don't be mad, I packed the cake for you. Zhang Ying opened the box and scooped a spoonful of it to Mother Zhang. Why is it so sweet? I'm so fat. It's a good mood to eat something sweet. Remembering Yun Xian's words, Zhang Ying only took a small bite. Where is my dad eating? I'll pick him up. Mother Zhang reported the place, sighed the victim, got up and went to the kitchen to cook soba soup. Just less than 5 minutes after Zhang Ying sat down, he took the car key to pick up people. The restaurant was not far from home, and she called Father Zhang, but she didn't expect someone else to pick it up. Zhang Ying. The other party was a young man, and his voice sounded familiar. Zhang Ying was still searching for who it was in his mind, and he declared his name, "I am Fu Chen, do you remember?" Boom! Those two characters were like rocks, dragging her heart down. Zhang Ying was frozen, holding her mobile phone and her head blank, until the traffic light jumped, and the car behind honked the harsh horn. She recovered, and quickly said, "Tell my dad that I will pick him up." A few minutes away, Zhang Ying parked the car, but did not get off immediately. She lowered half of the car window, licked her lips, and wanted to smoke. I rummaged in the glove box for a long time, only to find a bag that was left before, and there were only 2 left. The flame ignited the cigarette butt, and Zhang Ying's slender fingers caught the smoke in the dim car. Until one cigarette burned out, she opened the car door and stepped on the cigarette butt, wrapped it in a tissue and threw it in the trash can. As soon as he turned around, he saw Father Zhang walking out of the gate, being helped. Her father was blushing, his feet were vain and drunk, and he didn't know what he was talking about. Zhang Ying hurried to meet him, frowning and complaining, "Why do I drink like this? I will be scolded again when I go home." The drunk couldn't hear it, and swayed and yelled and could drink. "Help uncle get in the car first." Zhang Ying glanced up at the man and nodded. Fu Chen is a lot more mature than before, wearing a shirt and trousers, his hair combed back with hairspray. He has single eyelids, the tails of his eyes are upturned, and he looks fierce. Girls secretly discussed this when they were in school before. Some people said that Fu Chen was very manly and made people feel safe, and some people said that he had a face that would cause domestic violence in the future. Regardless of those polarizing comments, for Zhang Ying alone, he was a nightmare that he avoided in his school days. "I haven't seen each other for many years, and I didn't expect to meet again on such an occasion today." Zhang Ying suppressed his rejection of him and tried to calm down as much as possible. "Thank you, let's go first." "Hey, wait!" She was pulled by Fu Chen's arm as soon as she turned around. Zhang Ying took a step back vigilantly, avoiding almost subconsciously. Seeing her reaction, the other party shrugged his eyebrows and put his hands in his pockets calmly. "I heard my uncle say, are you working in the Science and Technology Park now?" Zhang Ying lowered his head to avoid his sight. "Yet. Have a chance to come out and get together. Talk later." Father Zhang hummed twice in the car. Zhang Ying checked the timing and said, "I'm leaving now." Getting into the car in a hurry to start, she turned the steering wheel and saw Fu Chen in the rearview mirror still standing still looking at her. The other party raised his hand and waved, and shouted, "See you next time." Zhang Ying frowned, said I will see a ghost next time in his heart, and stepped on the accelerator and left. The author has something to say. This article is a short story, and there is no male second. 07 The 7th cup of coffee. Zhang Ying thought for a while and tentatively said, "Sunset orange, then I will invite you to dinner another day?" "See the mountain?" "No, I'm joking." "See the mountain, concentrate on work, don't get caught fishing again." Zhang Ying put down the phone and let out a long sigh of relief. Just as she took a stack of documents and started sorting it out, the person at the front desk called her and said that she had a courier. Zhang Ying couldn't remember what he had sent to the company, so he walked over in confusion. Xiao Wu at the front desk saw her, handed the things over, and said, "Sister Zhang Ying, what a beautiful flower. A boyfriend gave it." Facing the big bouquet of roses in his arms, Zhang Ying was completely dumbfounded, and quickly picked up the card on the flower and opened it. "Let's have dinner together on Friday night." Fu Chen P.S. Pulling black is an impolite behavior. After scanning the 2 lines in a hurry, Zhang Ying cursed in a low voice, "Insane. This difficult flower could only be stored at the front desk." Before leaving, Zhang Ying was not at ease, and approached Xiaowu and whispered, "Don't tell me." Xiaowu nodded without knowing his heart. Since the opponent is aggressive, there is no reason for Zhang Ying not to accept the move. She released Fu Chen from the blacklist and sent out "Okay, see or leave on Friday night." The other party answered quickly, but Zhang Ying ignored him and focused on what he was doing. In the past few days, Fu Chen often sent messages to her. Zhang Ying turned a blind eye to them, only confirmed the time and place of dinner on Friday, which was purely a social entertainment. On Friday, when the bell rang at 6 o'clock, colleagues got up and left. Zhang Ying carried the bag, but before going downstairs immediately, he went to the bathroom and used the mirror to touch up his makeup. She usually wears light makeup at work, but today is different. The red eyeshadow, the long eyeliner, the red lip glaze, and the blush are also heavier than usual. Her facial features are delicate, she belongs to the light-faced line, and she rarely wears such a vibrant makeup. A delicate and slightly aggressive makeup gives her a lot of confidence. After packing up the cosmetics, Zhang Ying retied the bow on the waistband of the dress, loosened his ponytail and shook his hair, and tied the hairband around his wrist. After staring at herself in front of the mirror for a while, to make sure there was nothing wrong with her, she took a deep breath and walked out. Fu Chen said he would come to pick her up, but Zhang Ying refused. After getting in the car, he set the navigation according to the location he sent, and Zhang Ying turned the steering wheel to the destination. Fu Chen's place was a Western restaurant, and perhaps it was Rose that made him ascertain that material was the key to attacking Zhang Ying, and his most indispensable thing was money. Zhang Ying doesn't like cumbersome and delicate Western food, but fortunately, he didn't come to eat today. She stood at the door, straightened her hair, and followed the waiter to the table reserved by Fu Chen. "Coming." Fu Chen saw her coming and got up to say hello. When he was about to come over to do the gentleman's etiquette, Zhang Ying first pulled out the chair and sat on it. Seeing Fu Chen's awkward expression, Zhang Ying raised his eyebrows and asked, "What's the matter?" "Sit down." Fu Chen smiled and said, "You have become quite a lot." Zhang Ying spread the napkin and folded it on his lap, and asked, "What was I like before?" Fu Chen couldn't answer this question, saying it was a reminiscence of the past, but he knew in his heart that if he wanted to talk tonight, it was best not to mention the past. He calmly moved the topic away and asked about Zhang Ying's recent situation. Zhang Ying answered every question, and didn't show his face anymore. She looked at Fu Chen, who was wearing a suit and leather shoes, and felt that things were wrong. A few years of hard work in the business field has made him smooth, and the arrogant and domineering person who used to be no one can no longer see a trace. Two people talked absent-mindedly on some irrelevant topics. The scarlet liquid poured into the glass. Zhang Ying lifted the glass and shook it, taking a sip. Fu Chen glanced at her meaningfully and said, "I always think of you in the past few years." Zhang Ying put down the wine glass and asked, "Why?" "I didn't know, but when I saw you that day, I seemed to know the reason." Zhang Ying supported his chin and listened quietly to his words. The corners of his mouth were always smiling. "I also remember you deeply." Fu Chen smiled with satisfaction, "Really?" Zhang Ying kept the smile at the corner of his mouth, picked up the knife and fork and cut the ribeyes in the plate. "If there is no evidence, I insist that the rumors are my spread. Isolate me and exclude me, lock me in the equipment room, make me late for class, and make my own sports meeting. Advocating to sign up for me for 800 meters, what else is there?" Listed one by one, Fu Chen's face sank. "Do you remember everything?" "Oh, and the basketball that you slammed at me in the gym should have been deliberate." Fu Chen smiled and said, "Zhang Ying, it's boring to say this now." Zhang Ying flattened the corner of his mouth and looked at the person in front of him coldly. "I used to swallow, because I felt that more is worse than less, and it's boring for you. Of course, I don't have the ability to dare to confront you. The past things are unnecessary. Mention it again. If you don't disgust me again now, I will smile and say hello to you when you meet me on the road." The tip of the knife in his hand slashed across the porcelain plate, making a sharp, piercing sound. Now, I'm not afraid to cause trouble. If you want to play, I will play with you. Even if I beat you here today, I can afford the medical bills. Now that he tore his face, Fu Chen didn't bother to pretend. He pulled on his tie, his eyes filled with hostility, and he snorted disdainfully, "What is your mouth? I don't know what you are like." Zhang Ying looked at him calmly, remembering how cowardly he had been before, and nodded, "Indeed, I used to be a coward." With a crunch, the chair slid, and Zhang Ying crossed the table and walked to stand still in front of Fu Chen's eyes. A crisp slap on the face, decisively and hard. Fu Chen instantly blanked his brain, staring wide-eyed as Zhang Ying couldn't speak. This movement alarmed other guests in the hall to look over. Zhang Ying was very satisfied with the effect, and smiled and asked Fu Chen, "Do you think I dare now? Fuck me." Fu Chen spit, and stood up abruptly to raise his hand. As soon as Zhang Ying was about to raise the left hand holding the knife, he was torn into his arms. The handle of the knife fell to the ground and clinked twice. Zhang Ying took a breath and raised his head. With his eyes facing each other, Yun Xian frowned and was also short of breath. The familiar face in front of him made Zhang Ying's anger clear instantly, and he opened his mouth and didn't know what to say. Yungxian took Zhang Ying's arm, led her behind him, and said to Fu Chen, "If you have something to calm down, let's talk about it." Fu Chen looked at the spectators around him. He had the best face and wished to run away quickly. He pointed to Zhang Ying and left a sentence, "This slap counts as IOU, let's clean up." Then he walked away quickly. Behind him, Zhang Ying couldn't help chasing after him and cursing, "You owe me too much." Yungxian laughed and grabbed her waving hand, picked up the backpack on the table and pulled her out of the store. At 7 o'clock in the evening, it was a busy time, when people came and went on the street and the city lights flickered. When the cool night breeze blew, Zhang Ying shook his head, took a deep breath, and his impulsive mood slowly subsided. "Why are you here?" Zhang Ying asked Yun Xian. "Din with friends. Did you see it?" Zhang Ying took a step and sat down, covering his face with his hands. Yun Xian walked over and sat next to her. "Now you know that you are ashamed." "No, I didn't expect you to be there." Yun Xian smiled, "I didn't expect you to be so brave." Zhang Ying tilted his head, biting his lower lip and looking at Yun Xian. Yun Xian asked, "What's wrong?" Zhang Ying answered honestly, "I'm hesitating." "Why hesitate?" In order to leave a good impression, she has always held her temper in front of Yun Xian, but she has been seen doing so vigorously tonight, and now she is a little bit wanting to break the pot. "Forget it, it's all the same anyway." Zhang Ying opened his bag, took out the cigarette case and lighter, skillfully took out one to light it, and started to vomit between his fingers. With the smoke lingering in the air, there was a burst of sweet fruity aroma. She shook the soot, looked at the street and asked Yungxian, "Are you disappointed in me?" Yun Xian asked, "What is disappointing?" Zhang Ying cited her crimes, smoking, swearing, and fighting. Yungxian said, "It's just a little unexpected." Zhang Ying nodded, he was expressing his disappointment euphemistically. She knew Yungxian wanted to ask. Fortunately, she said it. Now she really wants to find someone to talk. It's my classmate, and my dad is his dad's subordinate. In high school, someone spread a rumor that he was in his dad spent money in our school, and he has done a lot of bad things. It was his dad who took the money to settle it. Later, he didn't know what happened, but he insisted that I said it out. To be honest, even though I really treated him, I've heard of all sorts of deeds, but I'm not so boring. But it's not important. He insists that it's me, so it's useless to argue with me. Then I was squeezed out, isolated, and bullied. His little brain, the cells are probably used every day to torture me like this. The once long nightmare can now be spoken in a few words. Zhang Ying sighed softly, it was originally from the past. This mentally retarded person does not know what illness he has recently suffered. He made a bet with his friend, and said that it would be enough in just 1 month. Chasing me. Originally, I wanted to meet him today to see what he was going to say, but as soon as I got up and couldn't hold back my temper, I just... What Zhang Ying was about to say stopped abruptly, because Yun Xian suddenly put his hand on her head and touched it. You did it right, but you were too impulsive. Let's not talk about anything else. What if he hit me with a punch just now if I didn't come? Zhang Ying whispered, I took a knife to defend myself. That's it. If you make a cut in his arm, your eyes won't blink. Zhang Ying bulged his cheeks and said nothing. Of course she also knew impulse, but because of her emotions, she couldn't restrain the anger in her heart. After being silent for a while, Zhang Ying honestly admitted his mistake, it won't be like this in the future. Yun Xian put a hand on her head and gently pressed, well, goodbye. Zhang Ying raised his eyes, looked at Yun Xian, and said softly, can you forget what happened today? Yun Xian smiled, I see, I delete my memory. Zhang Ying tried to keep her image, although I smoke, I am really a good girl. Yun Xian smiled and said nothing. Zhang Ying's red dress was as enchanting as a rose, with a little spark between his fingers, his sad expression drowned in smoke. Yun Xian just wondered if she was very upset and wanted to say something to comfort her. Next to it is a pedestrian street with a dazzling array of vendors on both sides, and the smell of various snacks is floating in the air. Zhang Ying hadn't eaten anything all night, when he smelled the scent, he felt hungry. Yun Xian followed her gaze and looked 10 miles away. It was the city lights brighter than the stars in the sky. So he proposed, let's go shopping. Zhang Ying eating was good, and he had to move forward when he stood up. She walked a few steps and found that Yun Xian had not followed up, so she looked back, what's the matter? Yun Xian shook her head and followed her footsteps, I think something has been forgotten, forget it, let's go. Western restaurant. Li's Heshan madly knocked on the keyboard. What about people? What about people? Where did you go when I came back from the bathroom? Hey? Yun Haiyan? Moses, have you been kidnapped by aliens? The author has something to say, Zhang Ying's new ID, Sunset Orange. The pedestrian street is full of people, the street lights are shining orange, the hawks are shouting one after another, and the narrow roads are crowded with pedestrians. Yungxian and Zhang Ying walked forward side by side, not hurriedly or slowly, right for a walk. Seeing someone selling oden on the side of the road, Zhang Ying bought a cup, and the fresh and tender fish were topped with tomato sauce, which was much more delicious than the salad just now. Not a few steps away, Zhang Ying noticed the strangeness and glanced down. Yun Xian. She called to him, wait a minute, my shoelaces are loose. Wen Yan Yungxian lowered his eyes and fell on her shoes. Today Zhang Ying wore a red dress that reached the knee. The neckline was low, showing the line of the collarbone. His long black hair was draped over his shoulders, and his feet were a pair of white canvas shoes. She is usually a white moon in a cold pond, but today she looks brightly like a phoenix flower in full bloom on a branch, and also like a cherry fruit ripening in spring. Zhang Ying's facial features are not outstanding, Jiangnan is so beautiful, she is just a good-looking look. But Yun Xian looked at her for a long time by the moonlight. It wasn't until Zhang Ying was about to pass him the paper cup in his hand, that Yun Xian suddenly returned to his senses. It's not convenient for you to wear a skirt, let me do it. Before Zhang Ying could react, Yun Xian knelt down on one knee. The man's fingers are slender and flexibly tied with a beautiful bow. Zhang Ying looked down at Yun Xian, only to feel that a cluster of fireworks exploded in his body, sparks flying around, his heart was pounding, and even his breathing was disturbed. Even if he knew in his heart that the other party was only a gentleman, Zhang Ying was still uncontrollably moved. She stared in a daze at the bow on the white canvas shoes, and suddenly felt a mess in her heart. Originally, She planned to retreat all over, but when he bumped into the scene just now, she could almost be regarded as a social death. However, the heartbeat caused by him could not be restrained. Zhang Ying lowered his head, pinched the back of his hand, forcing himself to calm down. This person is so good, and the same is true for others, so don't think too much. Seeing that she hadn't followed, Yun Xian stopped and turned around. Zhang Ying? Go away. Zhang Ying bit his lower lip without saying a word, but walked to him silently. The pedestrian street is very long, but there are two kinds of scenes at the end of the street. They walked to the end, and their surroundings gradually became quiet. The evening breeze messed up his hair, and Zhang Ying pinched the strands on his face behind his ears. Boss Yun! She called Yun Xian. Yungxian stopped and looked at her. What's the matter? Zhang Ying said, I forgot to say thank you. Yun Xian nodded, well, you're welcome. Zhang Ying, I'm sorry, I've caused you trouble. Yungxian, nothing. Zhang Ying wanted to say something, but saw Yun Xian stop in front of a jewelry stall. The boss is a young girl who is sitting in a chair and playing games. Hearing the movement, he quickly raised his head and glanced at them, and said anxiously to his teammate, my guest is here, hang up first. Zhang Ying smiled at her and said with consideration, you continue to play, let's see for ourselves. Good, sorry. The girl rushed back to the canyon again. Seeing Yungxian leaning over and choosing carefully, Zhang Ying asked him, you want to buy it? Yeah. He nodded, and picked up a pair to show Zhang Ying, how about this? Yun Xian picked a pair of earrings in the shape of cherries, with golden petioles, and the round fruits were bright red and sparkling. Zhang Ying nodded, it's pretty. The lady boss looked up while manipulating the character, and asked, does the handsome guy take a pair? Well, this is the right thing to do. Yun Xian quickly paid the money. The shopkeeper asked, shall I bring you a box? Need not. Holding the earrings, Yun Xian turned to Zhang Ying and said, try it on. Zhang Ying then reacted, pointing to herself with an incredible expression, is this bought for me? Yun Xian laughed, otherwise. He handed the earrings to Zhang Ying, put it on and have a look. Zhang greeted the earrings and leaned down in front of the mirror, wondering if it was because the light was too dark that she couldn't wear it anyway. His Zhang Ying let out a soft cry as the needle scraped the meat. I'm coming. Yungxian took an eardrop in her hand, raised his hand and gently rubbed Zhang Ying's earlobe with his thumb and index finger. The man's fingertips were cold and his earlobe was a sensitive place. Zhang Ying shrank subconsciously. With a lamp, Yungxian found his ear hole. His movements were awkward, but he was very careful, lest he hurt her with the silver needle. When Yun Xian leaned over and approached, Zhang Ying held his breath, looked away and tilted his head to look at the shadows on the ground. Close to each other, like kissing each other. The lady boss looked up at them and said with a smile, your boyfriend has such a good vision, it matches your dress today. When both sides were worn, the man straightened up and took a look, and commented with satisfaction, yes, it suits you well. There was a little more weight on the earlobe. Zhang Ying held his breath, and the back of his hand was almost torn apart by himself. She swallowed, and even the tips of her ears turned pale red. The lady boss killed an enemy, and the domineering female voice announced, you have slain an enemy. Zhang Ying only felt that she was losing blood frantically and was about to be reaped by the other party. Why are you giving this to me suddenly? She asked. Yungxian said, I think it suits you, it's not a precious thing, just wear it for fun. After a pause, he said again, Zhang Ying, what happened tonight, you only need to remember from this street. As the evening breeze was blowing, Zhang Ying touched his earrings, only to feel that this had been a bad night, and it seemed that it wasn't so bad anymore. When they returned to the restaurant, Zhang Ying drank and couldn't drive, so he called for driving. Before getting on the bus, Yungxian told her to report safety at home. Zhang Ying calmly waved goodbye to him, calmly returned home, calmly messaged Yun Xian that he was home, and calmly prepared to remove makeup. But at the moment when he took off the eardrops, he could no longer restrain his facial expression management, and the corners of his mouth rose wildly. The excitement in his heart made Zhang Ying urgently need someone to share his feelings at the moment. As soon as Shen Xian answered the phone, he heard a series of ah 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 ah. What the are you? I'm going to be deaf. Shen Xian complained while rubbing his ears. Zhang Ying, Shen Xian, spring is here. There was silence for a few seconds on the other end of the phone and asked, did you drink? Drank a little, but it's okay, not drunk. Zhang Ying raised his hand and touched his hot cheek. Then what do you pretend to be a magpie to give me spring? No, I mean, Zhang Ying chuckled, my spring is here. Shen Xian gave a hum, and immediately understood, oh, there is a situation? Who is it? That's what I told you, the beautiful coffee shop owner. Shen Xian opened a pack of daily nuts, his gossip heart was ready to move, quickly talk about it, what are you two doing? Zhang Ying grabbed the phone and was about to speak but stopped. She still couldn't say about the beating. After thinking for a while, she skipped the previous plot and said, today I met him on the street by chance, and then we two went to the pedestrian street together. You know, the sense of substitution is too strong, I think I am already him girlfriend. While sharing, Zhang Ying quickly flashed back those images in his mind, throbbing back to his heart. She grinned, her cheekbones ascended into the sky, I want to stop and pinch myself several times tonight, I can't resist it. Shen Xian slapped the melon seeds and followed with joy, yes, this boss is good at it. I originally planned to give up, so I thought about him and appreciated him as a handsome guy. Zhang Ying's voice lowered. But Shen Xian, I really like him. Spring is here, the cherry blossoms are in full bloom, and the insect royal family is back after a silent winter, and the cats in the community call lazily day and night. Ambiguous and throbbing grow wildly in this season. Unlike her Rao Chang 100 turns, Shen Xian said straightforwardly in the phone, if you like it, go after it. But I dare not. She was trying to get her girlfriend to make a move, so she listened to the other party saying, my husband is back, don't say anything. I wish you and your Xiangqin will get along well as soon as possible. Before Zhang Ying had time to say anything, the other party had already hung up the phone. Speechless. She angrily remembered this married woman in her heart. Zhang Ying's birthday is on the Arbor Day, and his surname is Zhang, so he got the name Zhang Zishu. Xiangqin? He Yungxian's image is too contrary to harmony. Zhang Ying opened WeChat, found Yun Xian's chat box, clicked on the settings, and changed him a new note. She put down the phone and touched the earrings on the table with her thumb. The memory cannot be erased, nor can it disappear. But when she recalled that night later, she would not remember the farce with Fu Chen in the restaurant. She only remembers the lively long street and cherry earrings. When Yun Xian stood at the entrance of the restaurant, he finally remembered what he had forgotten. I found the WeChat column in the notification list, glanced hurriedly, it was all sent by Li's Heshan, and quickly dialed a call. Hey! A kidnapper? Tear the ticket, I won't redeem anyone. Yun Xian's voice was full of smiles, are you still in the restaurant? Li's Heshan asked, are you still on the earth? Yungxian knew that he was wrong and sincerely apologized, I suddenly left a bit beforehand. I forgot to tell you. I'm sorry. Get out, stinky man. Li's Heshan finished cursing, and asked in a low voice, where are you, do you want me to pick you up? Yun Xian laughed, no, I'll go back by myself. When he came home, Li's Heshan was sitting in the living room playing games. Yun Xian took 2 bottles of beer from the refrigerator and threw a bottle to Li's Heshan. Li's Heshan controlled the handle and asked him, what happened suddenly? Yun Xian took a sip of cold beer and lied without changing his face, Su Cheng asked for a leave. I'll go to the store to make a sample. Can you forget to tell me? Li Zhishan picked up a pillow and slammed it at Yungxian. Yungxian steadily caught up. I'm old and have a bad memory. Li Zhishan snorted and said, but you missed a good show today. I later heard that a man and a woman were fighting in the hall. Yungxian hummed absently and leaned on the sofa to give Zhang Ying a reply. Sunset orange, I'm home. See the mountain, well, rest early. Li Zhishan, it seems that the man was beaten, and he was slapped severely, tut. Isn't it okay to be alive? What kind of woman to provoke? The scene in the restaurant flashed through Yun Xian's mind, and Zhang Ying did not hesitate when he fell his palm, fast, accurate, and ruthless. He patted Li Zhishan on the shoulder, and exclaimed, be nice to your employees in the future. The author has something to say, Li Zhishan, after all, you paid the wrong way. On weekends, the sky was clear, and the warm wind blew through the vine by the window. Zhang Ying held the computer and pushed open the glass door beside the cloud. As soon as he entered the door, he saw Yungxian standing in front of a white wall with his arm in his arms, motionless, as if thinking about it. She walked to the front desk and asked Zhao Xinruo, what's wrong with him? Zhao Xinruo explained, yesterday some children in the store were naughty and stepped on the wall a few times. The boss was staring at the footprints. Zhang Ying was puzzled, what's so beautiful about the footprints? Zhao Xinruo shrugged, who knows? People always seem to love to have trouble with themselves, the more unpleasant things are, the more they can't control their eyes and want to look there. Yungxian passed by the wall 4 or 5 times today, knowing that the footprints on the white wall made him feel uncomfortable, like crumpled white paper, but his eyes still followed involuntarily. Every time he looked at it, he frowned and sighed. Zhang Ying couldn't stand it, and suggested to him, would you like to cover it with paint? Yun Xian shook his head, it will still get dirty. Zhang Ying looked at the white wall. From a distance, the small footprints were actually inconspicuous, so she realized something, Yun Xian, you are a Virgo. Yungxian. Silence instead of answering, Zhang Ying wrote I knew it all over his face. She glanced at the wall, located at the top of the stairs, with a row of decorative picture frames hanging on it. Children often run up and down the stairs, so that wall is especially easy to get dirty. Zhang Ying suggested, why don't you try wall painting? That wall is quite suitable. Yun Xian moved his gaze from the wall to her and nodded, good idea. Draw a night scene. Zhang Ying sat on a high stool and stretched out his hand to compare. Here is the night sky, the moon is on the right, and here is the outline of a cafe with a big tree next to it. What do you think? Yungxian touched his chin and imagined the scene. Zhang Ying said, well, it's not bad, but where do I have to find someone to paint this? Zhang Ying curled up the corner of his mouth and patted his chest, I'm a professional. She got up from the chair and walked to the wall, I painted wall paintings when I was in college. It's not difficult. It can be done in a few hours. Yun Xian raised his eyebrows and asked with a smile, then when can you paint for me? Just today, it happens that I won't go to work tomorrow weekend. Zhang Ying tilted his head to look at Yun Xian, and said with a smile, I am afraid that if we don't hurry, our Virgo Yun boss will be crazy. After the Yunbian Café closed that night, Yungxian and Zhang Ying stayed and started a night job. Zhang Ying first worked out a draft, and a large piece of color came out, and Zhang Ying was responsible for sketching out the details. Even though he was wearing a grey apron, the paint was still stained on his body and clothes for a while. Zhang Ying held the color palette to paint while not forgetting to tease Yun Xian, you are also dirty, can you bear it? Yun Xian glanced at her helplessly, and solemnly defended herself, I have no cleanliness or obsessive-compulsive disorder. I just don't like seeing stains on white things. Zhang Ying hurriedly coaxed him, well, I know, I understand and I understand. The two of them focused on painting. When the progress was almost halfway through, Yun Xian got up, shook his somewhat sour arm, and asked Zhang Ying, "Is it thirsty? I didn't think it just now." When I asked, Zhang Ying realized that his throat was dry. "Get me a glass of water." Yun Xian returned to the front desk, poured a glass of water, took a straw into it, and walked to Zhang Ying and handed it to her. Holding something in both hands, Zhang Ying bowed his head and drank half a glass of water while biting his straw. Seeing her booze drinking, Yun Xian smiled, "If you are tired, I will draw it here today." Zhang Ying waved his hand, "It's over soon, I'm not tired." After working all the time, Zhang Ying was sweating and felt a little stuffy. His long hair was wet and sticky on his neck, which was very uncomfortable. After drawing the outline of the café, she got down from the telescopic ladder, put down the palette and paintbrush in her hand, took off the hair tie on her wrist and tied a ponytail to herself. Zhang Ying is wearing a white short French shirt with a square collar today. Her black hair is held in clusters and bundled, exposing her neck and shoulders, with smooth lines and fair skin. Yun Xian's gaze fell on the tattoo on her left shoulder. It looked like a planet and a red rose. Zhang Ying drank the water, stood far away and looked at his work, and asked Yun Xian, "This is the outline, it's almost the details, what do you think?" The monotonous white wall became colorful, the black night sky was hung with a bright moon, the stars were scattered all around, the café was lit with warm yellow lights, and a man stood under the tree. Yun Xian pointed to the man's back, "Let's draw another person next to him, he looks so lonely." Zhang Ying nodded, "Okay." It was late at night, and when Zhang Ying finished the last stroke, the moonlight outside the window was bright, and everything was silent. She stretched her waist and let out a long sigh of relief, "It's finished." Yun Xian looked at Zhang Ying with a gentle smile, "Thank you." Zhang Ying rubbed his sore shoulder, and his exhaustion disappeared in Yun Xian's smile. They stood side by side, overlapping with a pair of pictures on the wall. "I'm not alone now." "Well, I'm not alone anymore." When Yungxian sent Zhang Ying back home, it was almost 2 o'clock at night. After washing briefly, he took 2 bottles of beer from the refrigerator and pushed open the door of Li Zhishan's room. The keyboard and mouse made a crackling sound, and Li Zhishan was sitting on a chair with his earphones cross-legged, concentrating on the game. Yun Xian sat down on the edge of the bed, put a bottle of beer beside him, and asked, "When will the fight be finished?" Li Zhishan was busy with both hands, glanced at him, and quickly returned to the screen, wait, fuck, I didn't ask you to wait, just let me go." Yun Xian sometimes admires these 2 stunners. He doesn't go to bed in the middle of the night because he is only playing games or watching a ball game. Li Zhishan emotionally communicated with his teammates in the game, "Fuck, this number 3 is a German, Yun Xian, you teach me 2 curses in German, hurry up." Yungxian showed an expression that is difficult to say, "What are you doing so angry today? What happened to Zhou Yi?" It's okay that he didn't mention it. When he mentioned Li Zhishan, he was upset again. No matter what he thought of German, French, and English, he scolded him. Li Zhishan's purely venting battle soon ended. He took off his headphones, sighed wearily, took the beer on the table and opened the tab, and took a sip. "What's the matter?" "It's midnight." Yun Xian sipped his wine, "My mother called me again, let me go back." Li Zhishan found 2 packs of beef jerky from the snack box next to the computer, and threw a pack of beef jerky to Yungxian, "Then what do you think?" Yungxian said, "Of course I am not happy, but if I can bear it for 1 day, I won't resign as soon as I get promoted." Li Zhishan chewed the beef jerky and nodded, "Well, yes, don't do such a good job. I am your mother and I will scold you." Yun Xianbei glanced at him and continued, "I used to think I came to Zikan to escape, and I will leave when I get bored here 1 day. But these 2 days, I suddenly wanted to stay. It's good here too. Meet someone you like." Yun Xian raised his eyes to look at Li Zhishan, with a complicated expression. "I got it right." Yun Xian was silent. Li Zhishan's hitting the nail on the head stunned Yun Xian. It was probably because he had known each other for too long. Li Zhishan was always slandered by him as a too stupid son. He had forgotten that the man in front of him was smart and sensitive, and knew himself best. Whether it is a close friend or a former teacher, Yunxian is said to be much more stable than Li Zhishan. But in fact, Yunxian knew in his heart that Li Zhishan was more mature than him and more sophisticated than him. He was in a mess for the past 2 days, and all kinds of things were stuck together and couldn't find a gap to vent. This is when he came to talk to his friends at night. Almost. But you know, to put it nicely, I came to Zikan to change my way of life, but in fact I came to treat. I haven't understood my own life yet. I'll talk about it at this time. These are inappropriate. So when is the right time? Li Zhishan looked at Yunxian, sighed and shook his head. You think this is too complicated? Is it true that only those who have achieved fame and live a happy life can talk about love? I can't ask you to understand, it's not easy to pick a pleasing one out of the vast crowds. You always have so many worries. Be careful to miss your beloved. When Li Zhishan finished his seriousness, he approached Yunxian with a mean smile and went siping, Is that girl beautiful? Which one? What do you like? Yunxian shrank back, looked away, and took a sip from the wine bottle. Li Zhishan became interested and said endlessly, I'm honest, if you really want to live your life, you have to fall in love. Do you know? There are endless things you can learn from a woman. Yunxian rubbed his brow bones and stood up and said, Go, you go to bed earlier. Hey, wait. Li Zhishan stopped him, I haven't finished speaking yet. Yunxian ignored him, waved, and walked back to the room. After returning to his room, Yunxian lay on the bed, rubbing his sore eyes but not feeling sleepy. The heavy black curtains blocked all the light, and the room was completely dark. The silence of the night can comfort him to some extent. He hates insomnia, but ambivalently likes the wee hours. Yunxian closed his eyes and opened the playlist, From the Patter of Rain to the Waves, Afraid of Hitting the Rocks. Recalling what Li Zhishan had just said in his head, his heart became irritable again. He opened his eyes, touched the phone to unlock the screen, flipped through the moments boredly, and saw Zhang Ying sharing the rose flowers grown on his balcony. He stopped sliding his finger and gave a thumbs up. Scrolling down, there is nothing interesting. Yunxian wanted to quit WeChat, but found that Zhang Ying had sent a message a minute ago. Sunset orange, still not asleep? See the mountain, well, I'm a little insomnia, can't sleep. A voice call popped up on the page just after sending this line of words. Yunxian clicked to accept and put the phone in her ear. I'll read English for you. Zhang Ying said, I'm very hypnotic when I read English. When I was in school, every time I read English in the morning class, I could be sleepy at the same table. It's also a super ability. Her voice sounded close to her ear, and Yunxian smiled, Okay, you read it. Zhang Ying made a rustling noise, as if she was getting up and looking for something. She asked, What do you want to hear? Yunxian remembered the tattoo on her left shoulder and said, The Little Prince, right? Yes. Zhang Ying opened the blue-covered paper book, and the pages rubbed with a slight noise. Now you lie down, change your comfortable position, close your eyes, and put your phone next to your ear. Yunxian obediently followed suit, and let out a lazy hum. Zhang Yingfang softened his voice, speaking slowly, and whispered, Once when I was 6 years old I saw a magnificent picture in a book, called True Stories from Nature, about a primeval forest. It was a picture of a boa constrictor in the act of swallowing an animal. With the standard American voice, Yunxian relaxed his emotions in her gentle voice. Maybe it's really tired, maybe it's rare not to worry about other annoying things, maybe Zhang Ying's superpowers have taken effect. Yunxian became sleepy, and his consciousness gradually went blank. Yunxian. He seemed to hear someone calling him, and hummed in a daze. On the other side of the phone, Zhang Ying said softly good night. Yongxian couldn't remember whether he had said his good night. It was a rare night to sleep well without waking up in the middle. When he opened his eyes again, Yunxian picked up the phone that fell on the pillow and got out of bed, and first opened the curtains. The sun came in and he squinted his eyes to adjust to the light. On April in the world, the crabapples downstairs opened, and the warm sun dropped mottled light and shadow through the gaps in the branches and leaves, and the birds tweeted twice. He rarely gets up early, stretches his waist, and feels relaxed. Li's Heshan is right, precious things are always available and unquestionable, just like he passed by that abandoned factory building and decided to open a cafe here, just like that rainy night in early spring, Zhang Ying opened the glass door and walked to him. In front of him. Mom told him from an early age that you have to learn to weigh the pros and cons, and learn to choose and abandon. He once seriously weighed and gave up, but his mother said again, you are a nonsense, are you crazy? He didn't mess around, and he won't regret it. It's not about quitting a high-paying job. It's not about leaving Beijing where I lived for 30 years. Compared to the awkward life he used to, he is now living well. There is no need to stare at the ceiling with your eyes open every night, disgusting with everything about yourself and this dull life. At this moment, Yunxian looked at the ordinary scenery outside the window, and suddenly felt that his heart was sore, like a new sprout of spring breaking out of the ground. He had never looked forward to a new day so much. The author has something to say, I am late, sorry. In early May, the small world will update the main storyline. The staff of Zhishan Studio are busy all day, and they have to watch out for bosses who have been more erratic and unpredictable lately. After rotating the shaft for a little half a month, Zhang Ying could not rest well until the May 1st holiday. In the previous small holidays, Zhang Ying usually ran around the world with Shen Xian, going to any city he wanted to go to. But at the beginning of this year, Shen Xian was found to be pregnant, and his plan to ride the wind and waves can only be temporarily shelved. It's fine to be at home. Zhang Ying plans to take advantage of Labor Day to make up for the lack of sleep. She was woken up by a phone call early in the morning on the first day of the holiday. Hey! Zhang Ying touched the phone with feeling, eyes still closed, his voice was hoarse, who? Sister, help! Zhang Yuan? What's the matter? Hearing his cousin's voice, Zhang Ying instantly became sober and sat up. What's the matter? What happened? I was put a pigeon by the little model. Now everything is ready, the model can't come, help me. Zhang Yuan complained aggrievedly on the phone and cried. When Zhang Ying heard this, he softened and fell down, and pulled the quilt around him. Then why are you looking for me? I'm not a brokerage company. Sister. Zhang Yuan called out pleadingly, you save me and be a model for me one day, me? I can't. Zhang Ying's voice became smaller and smaller, as if he could sleep again at any time. You can help me just take 2 promotional pictures, very simple, help others. Zhang Yuan squeezed her throat and learned to act like a spoiled girl in Taiwanese accent. Zhang Ying was unmoved, it's really impossible, you can do it yourself. I'm thinking. Who will take care of other things? Zhang Yuan's soft tricks won't work, she's going to be hard, sister, if you don't help me, I will tell the uncle that you smoke and drink. If you don't go home on National Day and go to Inner Mongolia to play, you secretly went to the beer house in the middle of the night while traveling in Xiamen last year. Zhang Ying took a deep breath, are you threatening me? Sister, help me, the photographer has arrived, and the male model has arrived. I was already busy on May 1st, so I made an appointment with someone today. If you don't come to help me, it will really be over. There was silence on the other end of the phone, and Zhang Yuan knew that her sister was about to compromise, and she struck the iron while she was hot and used her assassin, today's handsome model guy, don't you come to regret your death. Zhang Ying, come and pick me up. Do I love your sister? Zhang Ying hung up the phone, rubbed her hair and tried to wake herself up, washing and changing clothes in a dazed manner. She just put on a layer of sunscreen and Zhang Yuan arrived. In the car, Zhang Yuan first gave Zhang Ying a bear hug, and after seeing her face clearly, she pushed away disgustingly. How come you haven't put on makeup? Zhang Ying rolled her eyes, then I will have time too. With her eyebrows there, she is not ugly without makeup, she almost looks ugly, plus the dark circles under her eyes that had been working overtime before, now she looks even more haggard. Zhang Yuan took out her cosmetic bag from her bag and patted Zhang Ying's face without any explanation. Fortunately, I will shoot JK today, just put on a light makeup. Zhang Yuan said while drawing Zhang Ying's eyebrows. Zhang Ying stayed sleepy and closed her eyes to make up for sleep, so that she didn't care what Zhang Yuan said, only lazy There are many vehicles going out on May Day, and the road conditions are poor. The driver's master slowly moved forward, and 10 minutes later, he was still on the street. Zhang Yuan was anxious about waiting, but Zhang Ying couldn't wait to be blocked like this, she slept a lot for a while. When Zhang Yuan wakes her up, Zhang Ying has finished a short dream and looks confused. She wanted to rub her eyes, but Zhang Yuan stopped her. Don't rub the eye makeup, there are mints in my bag, you have a refreshing one. Oh! Zhang Ying peeled a mint candy and stuffed it into his mouth, feeling the surrounding environment a bit familiar. She got out of the car and saw Zhang Yuan take out the clothes needed for today's shooting from the trunk: white shirt, bow tie, colorful plaid skirt. Zhang Ying sensed something wrong, swallowed, pointed to the pile of clothes dully, and asked, "Want to shoot this today?" "Yeah, JK is very popular recently, how about it, is it particularly youthful?" Zhang Yuan said, shaking her skirt, looking forward to it. Zhang Ying only felt dizzy by the colorful eyes, and his brain was down. Suddenly, the refreshing scent of peppermint hit the sky, and she suddenly woke up and looked around. The exquisite and warm cabin, the familiar decoration in the shop, and the logo hanging on the white wall beside the door, the blue moire is the base, and the two elegant white characters Cloud Edge. If time went back an hour ago, even if Zhang Ying was interrupted by her father, she would not be threatened by Zhang Yuan to agree to help. She hasn't been here for a while since finishing painting the wall for Yongxian last time. I usually make a cup of instant in the company's map, and I still miss the expensive coffee machine by the cloud. But it's one thing to miss it, and another thing to pretend to be an innocent high school girl in front of Yongxian. Shame, too shame. Zhang Ying was dragged in by Zhang Yuan reluctantly, covering her face with her hands all the way. She quickly glanced at the front desk, only to see Zhao Zhenro was busy, and Su Cheng should be in the back kitchen. Zhang Ying secretly breathed a sigh of relief when he didn't see Yun Xian. She talked about Zhang Yuan and made her last struggle, "I'm still going to do business, isn't it good to shoot here? I talked with the boss, and they agreed to shoot, and there are no guests in the morning." Zhang Yuan stuffed Zhang Ying's skirt and clothes into Zhang Ying's arms and pushed the person into the bathroom, "Hurry up and change. Since I can't escape, I'll make a quick decision, and finish the filming early and slip early." As long as they are not in front of acquaintances, Zhang Ying is actually not ashamed. Once on the island with Shen Xian, an actor dressed as an aboriginal dragged them to dance and she could play freely. After changing his clothes, Zhang Ying stretched the collar, straightened the collar, and pushed open the bathroom door. She turned a little girlishly and asked Zhang Yuan, "How is it?" Although her usual styles are very different, she unexpectedly fits her knee-length pleated skirt. She is young and beautiful, and she is very energetic. Zhang Yuan looked left and right, and nodded in satisfaction, "Sister, your maintenance is so good, you can't tell at all that you are 25. The corners of Zhang Ying's mouth flattened instantly, "You still don't talk." The male model co-production with her is wearing plaid pants and white shirts of the same color. Zhang Yuan tied a high ponytail to Zhang Ying and pinned a bow to her hair, "Sister, don't feel inferior in the future. You have to believe that you are the tenderest woman in Quangzhai City today." Zhang Ying frowned disgustedly and warned her in a low voice, "Shut up." The photographer chose a well-lit seat and ordered 2 drinks and cakes to decorate the tabletop. "Wait, the two can have some small interactions, don't need to be too close, a little shy campus love feeling." The photographer gestured to explain them patiently. Zhang Ying nodded from time to time, and occasionally fell on the opposite model brother, secretly sighing in her heart that the current child is really the president. Why didn't she meet such a handsome boy when she was 17 or 18? "Sister Zhang Ying, it turns out that you are going to shoot." Zhao Xinruo came to their table with the dinner plate, with surprise on her face. Sure enough, Zhang Ying smiled wryly, and pointed to Zhang Yuan, "Well, my sister, I came to take pictures for her." Zhao Xinruo nodded and praised, "You are so cute today." Zhang Ying smiled and waved his hand, "Pretend to be tender, pretend to be tender." The shooting officially started. The photographer set up the decorations on the table and adjusted the equipment according to the light. The two bow their heads, the boys look at the girls, look at each other. The model brother seems to be very experienced and dedicated. He does a few movements very naturally and his expression is just right. The ease of the other party made Zhang Ying gradually relax and enter the state. The scene of this group is that they are sitting face to face in a cafe without any difficulty. After taking a few more close-ups of the clothes, Zhang Yuan asked her to change one. On the other side of the front desk, Zhao Xinruo called out Su Cheng from the back kitchen, and the two gathered together and watched them filming as if they were watching a play. Zhao Xinruo wiped the cup and sighed, "Sister Zhang Ying is so beautiful today. I didn't know that she could still control this style." Su Cheng took a plate of leftover fruit and ate it and said, "Why the boss is not here today?" Zhao Xinruo stopped the movement in her hand and looked at Su Cheng. The two exchanged glances, understanding. "Do you also see that there is a problem with the two of them?" "Damn! I thought I was thinking too much. The heart of CP is burning. I have been observing for a long time." Zhao Xinruo whispered, "As long as the boss is there, Zhang Ying will stay in the store. As long as he is not there, she will either take it out or sit down and play with her mobile phone and leave." Su Cheng also searched for clues from his memory. The other afternoon, the boss put a piece of cheesecake in the refrigerator in the back kitchen. A customer ordered it, and I was about to get it, and he said it was sold out. Then Sister Zhang Ying came to me. I knew he was for someone else. After a meal of information sharing, the two people high-five and reach a consensus for the alliance. These two people must have adultery. Zhao Xinruo pondered for a while, and then asked Su Cheng, "Do you want to tell the boss Zhang Ying is here?" Su Cheng glanced at that, good fellow, they were all fed the cake. "Say. I can't bear to change me, that boy is quite handsome." Immediately, Zhao Xinruo took out her mobile phone and secretly took a few pictures of the shooting scene in the distance and sent them to the group of 3. "Zhao Xinruo, boss, Sister Zhang Ying is taking pictures in the store, as if to take pictures of her sister's online store promotion." Su Cheng, the male model, wiped her mouth. "Zhao Xinruo, so sweet." Sister Zhang Ying smiled so happily. Su Cheng, "Yes, I think they are a good match." The two sang and added fuel to rebroadcast the battle, and they brushed dozens of them in a row, and they became more and more energetic. Suddenly, Yunxian, who had been silent for a long time, finally appeared. "Yunxian, the shop is very idle? Nothing to do?" The group was silent for a moment. The boss is usually too kind, and they forget who owns the lifeline of their salary. Su Cheng returned to the kitchen and continued to make cakes, and Zhao Xinruo took the cup and wiped it carefully. The shop went back to normal in an instant. "Yunxian? Stop playing with your phone. Looking at your pole, I just seemed to see it moving." Li Zhishan sat on the folding chair with Erlang's legs upright, in a leisurely manner. Yunxian received his phone and confirmed his fishing rod. There was no movement underwater. He sat down again and looked at the distant mountains on the other side of the lake. The calm mind was messed up, and he was still at ease, but now suddenly became restless. He was taken by Li's Heshan to go fishing in the mountains early this morning, and he has been sitting for more than 2 hours. Yungxian gave a dry cough and said, I think it's almost done, so let's stop here. Li's Heshan took off his sunglasses and expressed doubts, one for you, one for me, is that enough? The shop is busy today. My boss is idle and can't justify it. If you don't have a lot of fun, you can fish by yourself for a while. Yun Xian got up and took the shot. Li's Heshan didn't bother to cultivate his sentiment in the suburbs alone. Okay, let's come here today. Can I go to barbecue in 2 days? Talk later. Li's Heshan carried the fish back. The spring was warm and the water was rising, and the fish in the lake were plump. Although there were only 2 fish, they were all quite big. He washed his hands by the sink and asked Yungxian, let's leave for lunch and go. Have you fished all morning, don't you want to taste it? No, please speak to my uncles and aunts and leave. Yun Xian waved, took the key and got into the car. It took nearly an hour to get back to the city from the villa. Yungxian increased the speed, and it was just 40 minutes after he reached the gate of Yunbian. The sun shines through the clouds, the spring flowers bloom, the sparrows perches on the eaves, and the young people's laughter melts into the warm wind. Zhang Ying inadvertently looked out the window, just to see the man stepping on flowers. He was wearing a white t-shirt, covered with a shirt, jeans and canvas shoes, and he rarely dressed up so refreshingly, so beautifully that he couldn't move his eyes. It rained last night, and the spring breeze blew off all the white petals, as if paved a road surrounded by flowers for him. Perceiving something, Yun Xian suddenly stopped and looked at the glass window. At the moment when he looked at each other, Zhang Ying only felt a panic, and the spring breeze filled his heart. He raised the corner of his mouth slightly, nodded to her, then looked away and walked forward again. Elder sister. Hey! Zhang Ying recovered. Zhang Yuan asked, what are you looking at? Nothing. The bell on the door rang, and Zhang Ying heard Zhao Zhenro say at the front desk, the boss is back. The photographer was explaining the shooting, but she was absent-minded and only heard a few words. The next group is the location, the models have to stand under the tree to interact. Why are you two standing so far, a little closer? The photographer squatted on the ground, holding the camera and directing the 2 models. Zhang Yuan looked at her and asked Zhang Ying, sister, are you shy? Zhang Ying raised his voice and asked, what am I shy? As he said that, he took a step directly next to the model brother, shoulder to shoulder in an instant. She swallowed, with a guilty conscience for no reason, and glanced in the direction of Yungxian, only to find that the other person was also looking at her, one by one inside the house and one outside the house through the pane of glass. The model brother squatted down and picked a clean and intact flower from the ground and pinned it behind Zhang Ying's ear. The photographer pressed the shutter to capture this scene. Yes, come, you two face me and hold hands. Zhang Ying looked away, always feeling that Yun Xian's gaze was still on her body. She suddenly became shackled and didn't know what to do next. It's so strange, like cheating with others in person. This idea was born in his mind. Zhang Ying couldn't help but spit on himself. What are you afraid of? What a twist! She continued to brainwash herself. Today is Labor Day. The so-called do one line love one line. You have to be dedicated and dedicated. Zhang Ying's heart was crossed, and he raised his arm and took the little brother's hand. Okay, come, look at each other and smile. The shutter sound continued, as if to remind her that this was just work. Okay. Thank you for your hard work. The photographer confirmed that the last photo was correct and announced the end of today's work. Thank you, everyone, for your hard work. Zhang Yuan handed everyone water. Zhang Ying took a sip, his face flushed, and a layer of fine sweat broke out on his forehead. The model brother and the photographer packed up their things and left first. Zhang Ying and Zhang Yuan stayed behind to sort out their clothes and props. The clothes Zhang Ying wore when he changed back, the t-shirt, jeans and canvas shoes, instantly felt a lot more at ease. If you want to come, you still have to say hello, Zhang Ying told Zhang Yuan to go to the car and wait. It's over. Yongxian stood behind the console, pulling up his shirt sleeves. Yet. Zhang Ying nodded. Yunxian smiled and teased her, I didn't know you had this kind of sideline. No, no. Zhang Ying waved his hand quickly, it was just being pulled by my sister to do coolies, not a side job. It's pretty. Yunxian scooped a scoop of ice cubes into a plastic cup and poured half a cup of milk. Zhang Ying only treats him as a polite, it is rare that he was seen by the other party once pretending to be tender. She was depressed, and she was a little dazed for a while, and asked indiscriminately, do you like uniform skirts? Yunxian was stirring the matcha with the tea bowl, and after hearing the words, he moved, raising his head and looking at Zhang Ying in confusion. I mean, student girl, do you like school girl? Yunxian raised his eyebrows and poured the stirred matcha into the cup. The dark green and milky white blended together to form a fresh and sweet matcha latte. I don't like it. I just think you look pretty, like a high school student. Covered the lid, Yunxian wiped the cup with a towel, took a straw and handed it to Zhang Ying, take a drink. You seem to be thirsty. Zhang greeted the drink, and his face was even redder than before. Yunxian put his hands on the edge of the table, looked at the place they had just stood outside the store, and suddenly asked, did the cherry blossoms in Yuantozua bloom? In the May cherry blossom season, Yuantozua is blooming for 10 miles, and it is as gorgeous as the clouds on the horizon. It is a good scenery that is well known throughout the country and attracts countless tourists. Zhang Ying nodded, yes, it looks pretty. Do you want to go? Yunxian retracted his gaze and met Zhang Ying's gaze, well, I want to go. Take me some time to take a look. The author has something to say, he is jealous, he is jealous, he is jealous.